All right, okay, so we should be live pretty much now. Oh my God, there's so many people here. Okay, hello, everybody. I didn't.
Hi, well,
Hello, everybody. My
Yeah.
name is
So for
Ken
anybody who
Farr.
doesn't know, this is TikToker Kendon Fire.
Hello.
He's a kind of
hello.
regular to the channel. So we're going to be doing. Okay. It's a little bit of a different stream tonight. This is part of a 24-hour fundraiser for someone in the community, Manda. So there is her GoFundMe. It's in the live chat. Please, if you can, I know that money's tight. It's COVID. It's like there's nobody has any fucking money. But if you can spare absolutely anything, please go over and donate to the fund. We've actually already reached what was the bare minimum, but anything else will only help. So, Kendon, I will fill you in on those kind of details. But it's just because I really probably should have sent you the link to Math Big Stream. Anyway, so thank you to everybody who's here, who's on the panel. To Sam, I'm not familiar with you, unfortunately. However, Lavender Lady, we and you have spoken a good few times before. Good to see you
Yes,
again.
indeed, we have. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, so we have two. Oh, what's that? I have two topics that I was going to be talking about today, and they're pretty interesting ones, if I do say so myself. So the first one is this concept of, and I swear to God, this was not planned. I didn't know that you were going to be here, Lavender Lady, although I think you're going to be very, very vocal
Well,
on this
neither did I.
particular topic. On this
Okay.
particular topic. But this concept of people identifying as super straight.
As another
this is
trans
going to be
person in the
real
room,
interesting. Yes, so
I
Sam
actually
and I
didn't know that
both.
you were trans, Sans. Oh, okay,
so
okay.
I'm non-binary, so
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got a
Yeah,
couple.
so
we got a couple queers fucks in here.
yeah. So because I am aware, people will not be aware of me. Hi, I'm Sam. I use they them pronouns. I am kind of this bit of the atheist community's local rando pagan.
okay.
Okay, fine. We love you anyway.
So yeah, so like the whole idea of super straight, like I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. Like, so my whole take on it, and then I guess we'll kind of go around the room, and if we have any conflicting opinions, then we'll just kind of hash it out. I just don't understand it because you're already straight, right? So everybody has like preferences, like that they like go for, right? So if I go for typically goth girls, which I do, they are my one weakness. I fucking love them. Does that mean that I'm like like ultra straight because I only go for a very unique? It's just really strange, right? So some people go after people who are extremely heavy. If they're feeders, they're like that's their thing, right? Goth girls are my thing, right? Like there's a lot of specific things that like people go for in a relationship, but like we don't need a subcategory of a sexual orientation to perfectly describe that. I just don't understand it. You know what I mean? That's my take.
I think I get it. What I'm seeing, and okay, maybe I'm full of shit here, and if I am, just tell me. There are the people who are very much afraid that they are going to be taken as what they think of as subhuman, what they think of as queer or fag or whatever. Am I going to get us thrown off the air if I keep using these words? And they want to make sure that everybody knows that they're red, white, and blue American males for the most part. And they have to call themselves any number of adjectives. They're afraid that they're not going to be seen that way. Is that what other people are thinking, or what?
So my kind of to break it down, what super straight means is the idea that you will only be attracted to people who were assigned the opposite sex to what you were assigned at birth, which of course ignores intersex people entirely. But let's pretend they don't a minute. We've just got the two binary sexes. What they're saying is that no matter what happens, their dating pool is just the opposite sex.
So,
which is rather fun because it means that straight men or super straight men would then include trans men in their dating pool, and super straight women would include trans women in their dating pool.
Yeah.
And so and that's the thing a lot of super straight people don't seem to understand.
And
so
that brings up the question
that
brings up the question I've asked Ken Ham's minions many times. Because when AIG goes on about, trans people and everything. So they are afraid, in other words, that they would be attracted to me because I'm not assigned male. I am assigned male at birth. I was not assigned female at birth. So they're afraid that they might. I don't understand how they would find me attractive, but that's another story entirely. Okay, so it does fit in, sort of, kind of.
So, did you raise your hand for a question that you had a second ago?
No, I was going to interject. I should introduce myself as well. My name is Kendon Farr. As I've said on Stephen's channel before, I'm TikTok famous, which is the worst kind of famous. I am the moderately conservative turd in the punch bowl. I am here to ruin the party. I don't mean to do this. I just have that way. It's like a site. I could join the X-Men with my social awkwardness. The problem is that I have published a few TikTok videos because I do political content on my channel, about a couple of videos about being attracted to trans people and the super straight phenomenon, and I get feedback from people who are not transphobic but just don't really quite understand it. The problem with the thing about super straight is they're not attracted to people who are assigned female at birth. As I've said, the phrase I use is this: we're not just attracted to people, we're attracted to parts of people. So if you are assigned male at birth but you have transitioned to become a trans woman, you do not necessarily have the bits that a red-blooded heterosexual man would be into, which is precisely what a lot of people in the comment sections are. Now, as someone who is technically part of the LGBT community, but who can't get a word in edgeways because I've turned to the dark side and I'm now, evil Tory, it's a Tory monster. I understand because I've been with trans women. Some of them are attractive, but they are these guys who identify as super straight for the most part feel threatened by a kind of strange trans ideology. Not all trans people, that's not where they're coming from, but a strange kind of trans activism that says, if you do not want to have sex with me, you are some kind of bigot.
So
they absolutely loathe it.
Okay.
There's so I understand that is how a significant number of trans activists can come across. So here's potentially a clarifying point: is that by and large, trans activists I've interacted with, while that's what gets interpreted from their words, what they're trying to say is saying you can't be attracted to trans people is dumb. A lot of the time, you can't even tell when a person is trans. In fact, I've known people sleep with a trans woman and not know she was trans after sleeping with her.
Yeah, that's a slight nuance there. It's a slightly different topic of conversation. If I'm not saying it's invalid, I'm just saying it's branches off from the main point.
And the reason I'm bringing it up as relevant, though, is that the point being made with super straight people is you cannot confidently say I would never be attracted to a trans woman if you're a straight man, because you quite possibly have, and you just don't know, because a lot of trans women can pass quite well.
There is that argument, and I respect it because it's true. There are lots of people. I mean, there was this is probably something I shouldn't bring up in the presence of trans people, but I remember my father bringing home from work many, many moons ago, like an A4 sheet of paper with photographs on it of Thai women. And they said, pick the one who's the lady boy. That was the joke, right? Yeah. The twist was they were all trans women, but you couldn't tell because that was how good the transition had been. And of course, my father thought this was hilarious, but that's a different, never mind. It's a dark time. The point is that you're absolutely right. There are, you can interact with trans people like for days on end, particularly if they're at work. You don't know them intimately and never actually know that they've transitioned. In the same way that you can interact with people and not know that they're gay. The problem is that they, a lot of the so-called super straight people who comment in my videos are the first people to point out I'm not transphobic, which is always a very awkward construction. But they will say things like, basically, they're not interested in what a trans woman might have downstairs. That's the basic problem. Is that so they're not interested. It's the genitals that they're not interested in, to put it bluntly. And so, if
genital preference is a thing, that's fine. Yeah. And I don't think any trans person should ever argue that people should date trans people. In fact, if someone doesn't want to date trans people probably don't want to date them.
Mm-hmm. No, that's perfectly reasonable. But the trouble, sorry, I'm interrupting. I do apologize. No, but one of the big problems is that there are a lot of trans, particularly on TikTok. I mean, TikTok is infested with all kinds of weird Twinkie activists who haven't really thought their ideas through.
I'll be the first to point out most of those are like 15, but yes.
Yeah, I know. On the left and on the right, it's not just a leftist thing. It's left and right wingers. Yeah. There are a lot of people who can't quite get over the fact that Trump lost the election, for example. They're still around. Bless them. They should go in a little special corner and play with the plasticine, really. But that's not the point. They are there are a lot of activists. If you say anything, you don't even have to say anything negative. You only have to question anything that they say. Such as, one comment, moving away from trans, if you're not pansexual, you're homophobic. That was a video that went round, and we all...
What the hell?
No. I'm not saying you agree. I'm just saying that was a comment that one of these... If you're not pansexual, you're homophobic. Shut up! You're ruining it for everybody.
This is why I keep trying to tell the people on my side, so to speak, I'm very left. Yes. To just shut up until they've learned their shit. Once you've learned your shit, speak loud.
Yeah, read a few books, talk to people who disagree with you, sharpen your ideas, and then go to war. Don't just regurgitate stuff you found on Tumblr. It doesn't help the cause. But that's true for everybody, including right wingers. We do get a few. We do get a few in our camp as well. But yeah, that's my take on the super straight. Obviously, I've kind of rambled on for a bit. So if anybody wants to tear me to pieces, please feel free to do so.
Where I was basically going with it is, even if you have a genital preference, saying you can't be attracted to a trans person at all is that's not how we define gender socially, even if that's the words we use to describe it. English is shitty. And so it's not that even ignoring whether or not it's problematic, it's just dumb from kind of where I stand, in that it isn't actually a thing that is quantifiably a viable sexuality to exist in the first place. And so I don't see any point in arguing past it. But I think that then people who find something they identify with within the concept of super straight, it's worth having conversations around issues they have. That's the reason the label came up in the first place.
If I may interject, because that's a brilliant point that you've just made there. Super straight is not a real sexuality. That's not the argument that's being made, at least not by the people who interact with me. And I've got a few people doing this. Super straight is a response. It's not an orientation. It's a response to what they perceive to be, let's pick a nice phrase, activist bullying. That's what they perceive it to be. They are tired of being told, as the example I gave you, if you're not pansexual, you're homophobic, right? Something that is demonstrably daft to even people who are like left-leaning people like you, right? But the thing is that these little bright young Twinkie things have developed a complex whereby if you challenge them, their ideas, you're challenging their identity, which is an act of oppression and hatred, and therefore they must lash out. I know several people much younger than me, because I'm 35, therefore halfway dead, who are getting mass reported to TikTok because they say one thing on one comment thread and someone takes offense. They get all their mates together and they just purge this person from the platform, and they ban for like a week or two from posting any videos or whatever. That's what super straight is. It's a reflex action. It's not. This is not going to enter the LGBT pantheon. Don't worry about it. It's not going to turn up. They're not going to have a super straight parade. Maybe a couple of jokers will, but it's not going to become part of the Rainbow Legion. The point is, they're doing it because they are absolutely pissed off with this kind of arrogant, narcissistic activism from some people, and unfortunately, as you pointed out, they're often the loudest people. So they're
they are a loud minority, unfortunately. Yeah. And I will say, I think sometimes they make valid points in bad ways. Like, I think that one of the big ones that they try and say something that I think the point they're trying to get at is right, but it's dumb. The way they do it is the whole thing around saying that acknowledging that a person is trans can be an important thing, yeah, but the idea that I think a lot of them have, that someone should always identify as trans or always put their pronouns in their bio for whatever thing, that becomes an issue when you have closeted trans people who, if you try and bring this forward as an idea, you're then forcing them to either come out, and you're forcing them out of the closet, or you're forcing them to misgender themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have good intentions in that we should acknowledge everyone's pronouns, and we should try and normalize the idea of expressing your pronouns to people, because that way it's not as weird when trans people do it. And I think that generally linguistically, I dislike the fact we have pronouns that are gendered in the first place, but that's a whole different rant.
Well, I'm quite comfortable with that idea, but obviously that's because I'm an evil right-wing monster. But no, carry on, please.
Oh no, I can understand being comfortable with it. I just think that it restricts some of the ways we describe things, personally.
I would argue, as a former English teacher, I would argue that the whole point of language is that definitions must define, therefore they must limit. No, I understand. There's not a lot of breathing room in the current pronouns.
Because they have this idea that we should try and normalize using people's pronouns, which we should, they take it to the extreme, and that is where issues start to come in. And it's not necessarily that they're extreme leftists, it's just that they are both extreme and leftists. Like they have extreme ideas.
No, I will concede that. I will concede that absolutely. I've met lots of leftists who follow me who are actually quite pleasant and receptive.
Because, like, I'm to be upfront, actual Tommy.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh no. Sorry. No, it's all right. Carry on.
No, you're fine. I say that only half as a joke. I think communism is viable, but anyways,
I know some Latvians and some Poles who would have a lovely conversation with you.
I know my best mate's Polish. That's been a fun discussion.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
and so I think the thing is that most trans activists that do actual activist work aren't saying these things, but a lot of young trans people who are quite loud, who don't understand the arguments yet, are making these points.
I would go one step further. It's not just that they don't understand the arguments, it's that they don't understand how to sell them. One of the things I've noticed...
I would agree with that.
We refer to the bright young Twinkie things as Generation Z or Generation Z, but I refer to them as Generation Prime. They live in a world of Amazon Prime with next day delivery and things like, and everything's streamed. They don't have to wait for anything. And they seem to take this attitude to cultural evolution and political debate. We want this and we want it now. And if you don't agree, you're in the way and we get to purge you. There's this attitude, which is not how cultures develop. It's not how ideas are spread. You have to convince people that you've got the right idea, and they're not prepared to put the work in. I mean, the activists that you probably know are prepared to put the work in, but a lot of these bright young social media types aren't, and they're far too aggressive, far too abusive, and people dig their heels in. They're stubborn, even if they're wrong.
I will agree with you here in the leftists. The biggest issue I have with leftists is the amount of infighting and the lack of willingness to try and understand each other sometimes.
Bingo.
In our own camp. And so because I absolutely agree with you, is that they aren't willing to learn. And I've basically spent the last year trying to teach my friends who want to be activists proper shit.
You have to be able to walk
And
up.
so, like, I'm 19, so I am firmly Gen Z.
19. I remember being 19. Good God.
All of you are making me feel ancient. You understand I could be mother and grandmother to every one of you. If I make it that far, I'm going to be 64 in July, okay?
Oh, well, happy birthday for then. Yeah.
So I agree with that criticism. I think it's a perfectly valid criticism. I think that what then the response is, and my criticism of the response to that, would be to paint trans people as a monolith from this loud minority.
Yeah, no, I would concede that's a flaw. I mean, it's obviously not true. Every groups are internally diverse. It doesn't matter what group you pick. The problem is that it's not so much that they're the loudest, but if they're the ideas that get pushed forward, because that's another thing. I think I might have mentioned this to Stephen, him over there, the mad socialist.
The very loud person over in the corner, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's been very polite and genteel at the moment, but he has his moments. No, but the thing is that I was welcomed into the British Conservative Party by a trans man who is not allowed to attend any trans meetings in his university or the local area, because obviously there are other trans, because of his politics, because he's a Tory and he's also a Roman Catholic. For some reason,
yeah, that's a really, especially with a lot of the kind of more recent stuff that's happened, because I'm Manchester-ish in terms of area. And
so
I kind of recognize the accent, but I just thought it was worth acknowledging that, like, we're both from near the same area-ish, but a lot of the local pride stuff recently, like in the last couple of years, and I've tried to kind of help with pushing for this, has been, we don't ask questions about religion, we don't ask questions about politics. If you show up, you show up, don't be a dick.
That's how it used to be back in the bad old days when rights were scarce. It used to be, if you're part of the Rainbow League, Team Rainbow, turn up. We don't actually care. It's all about bodies. But I think
I've been pushing that recently.
But the trouble is that now that a lot of rights have been secured, like gay marriage, gay adoption, you can't be sacked for being gay in the UK. You can't be sacked in the US for being gay. Now, is that a universal law?
Not necessarily. I think there are ways around that. I mean, remember, this is the US where rules don't matter.
You're on your own.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. One of my big things, I'd like to have a bathroom to use besides the disabled loo. I mean, I am disabled as well, but that's a different thing. But like, I'd like to have a toilet to use that isn't the disabled toilet.
It's interesting. You mentioned rights are secured and everything else here in the U.S. Anyway. You've noticed, I hope, the spate of anti-trans bills that have been going through the legislatures in the southern states. Notice the timing of those bills, the timing of the bathroom bills, if you remember those a few years ago.
I remember reading stuff about it, yeah, but what is it about the timing? I must have missed something.
The bathroom bills started showing up when marriage equality finally became a given, that we knew it was going to happen, and they had to have another target to take after. And now you've got going for the kids, and that's only really since his orangeness lost the election.
Tangerine Mussolini.
Yes, him.
Yes. And something I will comment about a lot of like Gen Z people is, like, for me personally, the first Prime Minister I remember is Prime Minister Pig Dick.
Oh, Cameron.
Yes.
Yes. The android made of ham. Yes.
Yes.
Not the most successful Tory Prime Minister we've ever had. Let's be honest.
And like, I I have therefore never seen a Labour government, and so all of my peers have
carry on.
all of my none of my peers have ever seen a Labour government. We've just seen the Tories, but to such an extent that there is no understanding of what something that isn't the Tories would be like.
Well, if it was Keir Starmer's Labour government, you wouldn't see much of a difference. But that's a different.
No, you wouldn't. I have opinions there.
Okay,
Keir Starmer is a red Tory. He's very much a Blairite, therefore not a proper lefty, as far as I'm concerned. He would get on fabulously in the Tory party these days. But there we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think more the thing here that I'm trying to come around to is the fact that a lot. When we look at historical patterns, a lot of the arguments being used against trans people now, because we have a bunch of shit going down there, we've reached a point where a lot of the old arguments that used to be used against LGBT people are now being used against trans people.
Some of them, yes, but there are other arguments as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I do just want to kind of say we're after getting to the halfway point of the hour, so if we can just kind of just wrap up this topic pretty quickly. It's the second one that I have is not going to be a million miles away. We're going to be covering Caitlyn Jenner's run for governor, so it's going to be in the same general area. So
my general thoughts on it are basically that while I understand some people's like feeling the need to push the super straight thing, I think that for me personally, where I find a big issue with it is that I'm part of one of the most likely groups to get murdered or to commit suicide in the UK. I don't have a bathroom to use in most public places unless I'm disabled, which I happen to be. And I will quite often with things like I can't be legally acknowledged as non-binary at all, and so I still have all of these stumbling blocks to get through, and people are already giving me pushback. Yeah, is how it looks from my end.
Well, I was going to say the trans people that tend to get murdered and tend to be in the sex industry, which is obviously a precarious one, and that's a different topic. I'm not saying it's a good thing or it's okay, it's excusable, but that's another factor that needs to be considered. The suicide rate about trans people, because there's so few trans people, when a trans person does kill themselves, that actually boosts the percentage rate. But also, it tends to be depression is the number one cause of
from lack of treatment, because our gender identity clinics are shit.
Well, I mean, I know something about depression, and I know that depression doesn't necessarily come about. Well, it can be because of identity issues. It can be for other factors. It can be just random. I've forgotten what the third point was. The bathroom thing. I would be happy with unisex loos, but I understand the objections from a lot of people, especially women, because as you know, the ladies' bathroom is the one place that Superman can't go, and it's a case of discomfort. I've had a number of conversations with ladies who are concerned that someone who is biologically male but who presents as a woman is able to enter what has been traditionally an all women's space.
I think that there's an argument to be made there that that's just generally a dumb complaint, the same way complaining that having lesbians in a bathroom might make women uncomfortable.
No, the difference is that it's the fear of manhood, it's the fear of masculinity, it's the fear of, and I don't speak entirely ignorantly of this, as I've mentioned to Stephen before. Okay.
So I was just okay. I do really want to finish this up because I don't want to push it away or anything, or there was always going to be something that was going to be left unsaid, because we could talk about this issue for not just the full hour, but also 2.
Oh yeah, we could keep going.
Easily.
But I do desperately want to move on. The only thing I'll just quickly address the last point that you made, Kendon. If there is a trans person who is going into the female bathroom, there is no masculinity there. So that's that's just there's no masculine kind of vibes or energy or because I've been in a bathroom with a trans man, and I have no discomfort at all. Like they
Oh,
didn't
right.
give off that kind of. Well, no, but I'm just saying, like they were always a guy to me. They were always one of the guys, and that's just because, like, it's not just because he identified as being male, but also just because, I mean, like, he always just struck everybody as male. There was nothing feminine about him, even though he was born as biologically female. So the whole thing about, I could say that, like, that, like, there was femininity in that, but there just wasn't. So
Well, again,
Again, I know that we can talk about it.
I could build on that point, but obviously
we've got to build on that. What I might
Yeah.
want to do is, maybe if some of us can talk about this later, I think I might want to have a show on this. I have a channel as well, and maybe we can take off with this, because my shows tend to run 8 or 10 hours. No, I'm not kidding.
And you've had shows that long, but they don't tend to run that long.
So yeah, let's talk about that
shows
stuff.
are pretty generally long.
Okay, so Caitlyn Jenner's campaign ad, and then it's going to go straight into a different person's campaign ad, and I want it will be subtle. It will be subtle, but I want you to know. I want you to see if you can tell the difference. And it's not just about, like, the side of the political aisle that they're on, because they do happen to be on opposites. But I do just want to see if you can notice it.
Famed Olympic gold medalist Caitlyn Jenner is now entering a new race for the governor of California.
I've always been a dreamer.
California was once the envy of the world. We had what everyone else wanted. The American dream grew up here. Yet career politicians and their policies have destroyed that dream. It's been locked away, closed, shuttered, left in the dark, burned down. The government is now involved in every part of our lives. They've taken our money, our jobs, and our freedom. California needs a disruptor, a compassionate disruptor. I came here with a dream 48 years ago to be the greatest athlete in the world. Now I enter a different kind of race, arguably my most important one yet, to save California. I want to carry the torch for the parents who had to balance work and their child's education, for business owners who were forced to shut down, for pastors who were not able to be with their congregation, for the family who lost their home in a fire, for an entire generation of students who lost a year of education. This past year has redefined our career politicians as elitists, and the people of California as the warriors, the kings, and the angels. We never take kindly to glass ceilings here. Instead, we shatter them.
This one's way out there.
We're the trailblazers, the innovators. California is facing big hurdles. Now we need leaders who are unafraid to leap to new heights.
He does not want to finish second in this race. He wants the world record.
Who are unafraid to challenge and to change the status quo.
I want to prove that it is absolutely possible if we only do it together.
California, it's time to reopen our schools, reopen our businesses, reopen the Golden Gates. So I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, I'm running to be governor for all Californians. To reclaim our true identity, to bring back the gold to the Golden State.
What a tremendous victory.
Now is the time to achieve that summit, to be the shining city on the hill, and together we'll restore and renew the California dream.
It's about what happens from here. It's not just about one person. It's about all of us.
It's going straight into another one.
No.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen.
The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises. It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
Now I know that it was subtle, but could you tell the difference between those two ads?
Yeah, subtle. Actually, there's one thing that I wanted to speak to really quick. I was listening as I was doing stuff. Sorry, it takes a while for me to do shit with no electricity and everything. But Diana had mentioned the suicide rates of trans people, and it makes me so fucking angry when I hear people on the right use the statistics of the suicide rates in the trans community as a reason why being trans is bad. Like, for fuck's sake, they do it, because they are told that they are going to hell, that they're abominations, that, the reason that the suicide rates in all of the LGBTQIA community is because of the way they're treated by fucking assholes like that.
Right,
They pull it out and they say, oh, this is look, see, being trans is bad. They're all killing themselves. So fuck you. Like, seriously, that shit makes me so goddamn angry.
We kill ourselves because of the way we are treated, not because of what we are.
No,
Yeah.
God, no. Fuck's sakes. Like, I'm sorry. It breaks my heart and it makes me angry. Like, there was a while back that I stumbled across this show. I guess it's something that this asshole does. Is we'll find trans people on YouTube and they'll have a game of, like, I can't remember, like, is it a he or she or some sort of shit like that, and they'll...
Oh, you're talking about Darth Dawkins.
I don't know who it was, but I didn't... the first time I ever saw it, fucking Diana was on it, and I wanted to burn this fucking world to the ground. Like, I know Diana knows about it now because I went to Kate on Bionic Dance about it and I didn't want Diana to see it because I didn't want her feelings to get hurt, but I wanted, like, that.
Not to worry, honey. I tell you, no, my skin is thick, and
I know your skin is thick, but that's that's fucking shitty. And you're beautiful, you're fucking gorgeous inside and out. Like, it's so stupid and it hurts. It hurts. I'm sorry. It makes me angry. I don't like that. Like, Diana is one of my best friends. She's fucking family to me, and, like, seeing somebody point and laugh at her like that, oh, fuck me, I was mad.
Oh, there's no accounting for taste, Manda, but that's another story entirely. Let's get on track here. This is not about me, kids. Let's get on track.
Just in case anybody didn't kind of, point out the subtle difference. And yes, I know that Noxum said that one was a state and the other was nationwide. That wasn't the subtle difference I was talking about, although that is a difference. There was policy littered throughout Bernie Sanders' video. There was not a single policy in Caitlyn Jenner's. Not only that, but if you go onto Caitlyn Jenner's website that she has specifically for her run for governor, the policy area is blank. We have no idea what the fuck she stands for.
That was what Trump was. The RNC this year had no policy. All they did was take the one from 4 years ago before and just like rubber stamp it. Like they literally had nothing he was doing. So there's no policy other than fear mongering and hate, and that's all that they fucking need to do.
I think the thing with Caitlyn Jenner is that, having done a quick read into like her background and stuff, like the no policies thing, if she had a history of having policies, you'd at least have an idea. But she doesn't. And she doesn't have an educational background in it, so you can't even look at where she kind of comes from in terms of standing with it. And so I think there's so much unknown about her that she's not a viable candidate in terms of any sort of security and policy.
I was going to say, if you go on the website for her, Caitlyn for California, or CaitlynJenner.com, she has on her solutions page a series of sort of vague statements about putting a stop to new and higher taxes. And we've got another bit here about addressing the affordable housing and homeless crisis, which we won't be able to fix overnight, apparently. But yeah, you're right. I get no sense of a battle plan at all.
No, I mean, Caitlyn Jenner and Trump and fucking Ted Cruz, these are reasons why, people should be able to run for office in this country without it being about money. Like there needs to be some kind of reform in this, because pretty much if you have money, then you have power and you could fucking run. Fucking Lauren Boebert and these people. The woman that because you know how here in Georgia we just had that special election in the beginning of January for two. I can't remember the woman's name, but the blonde bitch. She had no business whatsoever being. She couldn't even spell politics, but she had a fuck ton of money, so she almost won. Like it's crazy.
Well, what I noticed, I actually considered running for the United States Senate here in Pennsylvania. When I was talking to someone who did run in 2016, he told me exactly why I couldn't, because he had said, when I ran for the Senate, I raised $600,000 and I was still outspent 15-1. How could I come up with multiple millions of dollars to mount a challenge for a Senate seat here in Pennsylvania? It just can't be done, especially somebody who is going to vote for a hyper-intelligent pre-op trans woman, who's a lesbian? that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Especially in fucking Pennsylvania, which is like the south of the north, pretty much.
Pretty much. We're not quite Ohio, but we're close.
I think that much as I could probably criticize Caitlyn Jenner all day on dumb things that I think she has done or said in the past, and the fact that she just comes from money and has no background in this. I think more the point I would make is that she does not have a substantive campaign, and I don't think her team knows what they're doing beyond how to set up the nice graphics and how to make the optics look decent.
I don't know. Is it that they don't
know enough for her to win? This is the problem.
Here in this country, absolutely, because this is Republican leaning. And when I say Republican, I'm not being kind here. The Republicans have an idea of what they want to do. They just can't talk about it yet. They almost talked about it on the 6th of January, but you notice they don't have policies, because their policy, as far as I can see, is to set up a Christian theocracy is to set up a fascistic state, and you can't talk about that in an election, not yet.
No. And
I was sorry.
No, go ahead.
Other kind of point that I was going to kind of bring up is there was a reporter from Vox, I think it was, who saw Caitlyn Jenner and asked her about her opinion on trans people who are in middle school and in high school, in them playing on the sports team of the gender that they are now. And she said that she was against it. And she said that she thought that biological males shouldn't be on the same sports team as biological females. However, now, where this gets interesting is because in 2016, Caitlyn Jenner played on the female golf team.
Right.
So clearly she doesn't even hold to her own standards. No. So, if we're to be really, and I mean really, really, really mean about it, I don't think that there's anybody who would kind of deny that Caitlyn Jenner is biologically male, right? Don't think that anybody would actually deny that. So if she's to be held to her own standard, then she shouldn't have played on the female golf team because of the argument that it is, she would have had a biological advantage. She was the greatest. She was a superhuman athlete. So all of these, it's just this idea of it's okay for me, but if I get into power, then I'm going to stop you doing it, and that's just really just
right
up to me.
Right?
Like anybody ever give a fuck about track anyway? Come on. Just saying. Best athlete,
especially here in the UK.
Sorry.
High school sports is not something that many people get super heated about. Besides people on the teams.
I think I can speak.
No.
We don't give a shit about sport in the UK, not the way that Americans do. We don't do. I mean, there's a thing like you've got college football and things like that, where you actually watch university football teams play against it. We don't care. We just don't. Sport is something that we sack off. It's not something that we.
No.
Well,
the closest.
As an American, may I say, Americans are weird.
Yeah.
I think the closest we get to giving an actual...
But nice weird. I like Americans. I like America. It's a fun place. It's like a living Marvel movie. It's great.
It would be more
like a
fun
fucking
if there were some
horror story the
decent
past
people
5
here.
years.
But,
I was going to say that, it's a nice place to look at from the outside. It's nice for us.
I was going to say
nice for us to look at. But...
Yeah, it's good to look at when you've got a return flight. That's no. That's not entirely true. No, I like great swathes of America. I think it's got a lot of promise and a lot of hope. A lot of my friends are Yanks, and
I tell you,
I have a Texan partner and a Floridian partner, so I'm not sure I can talk too much shit.
I tell you, there are times I wish I could run away from here, but nobody will have me. I'm old and I'm
I'd have you,
poor.
but we'd still be stuck here, sweetheart.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I'm old and I'm poor, so most countries don't want me around because I can't contribute to their economy or anything like that. And I'm terminally ill, by the way, so that's another story entirely.
No, we're going out Thelma and Louise style, Diana. Totally doing this.
There we go. Now we're talking. Okay, so is this next stream?
Yeah.
Is that in the side chat?
Yeah, I gotta I do have to bounce because I have to run down. My father takes his dog out at a certain time, and I have that literal 2 minutes to run downstairs and get water and stuff. So I'm gonna go do that. But Julian Junk Shop stream is next. Dave put it in the side chat. I will be too. Thank you. I'm sorry.
There we are.
Flipping in and out. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stephen, for doing this. I love all of you, and I will see you all in the next chat or in the next stream. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care, hon. See you in a little bit. We derailed this one in a big hurry, didn't we? Well, Caitlyn Jenner, as far as I'm concerned, has about as much business running for California governor as Donald Trump had running for the president of the United States. And that's what scares me, because she's got about as much chance of making it as he did.
You know,
she might be the next
She's
governor.
great. She's tremendous. She's going to be a great governor of California.
That's uncomfortably good. That's uncomfortably good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So the first time that I ever talked with Kendon, I can't remember exactly how it came up, but you did that impression, and I lost my shit in that. It was ridiculously good.
I know the best words. I've only got 7 words, but they're the best ones. It's great.
It's so good. It's like uncannily good.
Hi. Anyway, this doesn't involve the conversation. I'm just distracting people. It's no good at all. Caitlyn Jenner is it's a puppet show, isn't it? There's nothing really behind that. She's married into the Kardashian family. She's playing the Kardashian way, which is make big speeches, get on social media. Oh, look at my nice, pretty campaign ad. And meanwhile, everybody completely forgets that she killed somebody, and we don't talk about it at all. She killed somebody. She killed somebody, and
nobody talks about it. It's really weird. Nobody mentions it.
I feel like maybe here, if you've murdered someone, you probably wouldn't get into office, or at least I'd hope.
No, but it's a weird one. It's like, I think there's a weird, and this is going to sound like a comment on the trans community, but it's not. I think
specifically Caitlyn.
Specifically Caitlyn, right? Caitlyn, as Bruce, killed somebody. Then she went through the trans window, became Caitlyn, and it's like Bruce never existed. So it's like everything that Bruce ever did has been sort of deleted. All the negative stuff has been deleted from the popular imagination, and there is only Caitlyn. Now, obviously, this is a psychological trick. I'm not saying it's been engineered, but it's like, how does she get away with it? How does she do that?
It is a thing that a lot of the time, because trans people look so different after they've transitioned, people have a mental disconnect. It's an irritating psychological thing on my part that I get frustrated with.
It's like when companies their reputations fall into ruin and they rebrand themselves. It's the same company, but all you've done is change the logo. But it works. It works.
It's why so many trans people's families have, and I think that this just feels a little bit ridiculous and always has done for me, but I can psychologically understand it. Is the mourning period a lot of people have when one of their relatives comes out as trans, because there is a perception shift that they have that is effectively the mourning process. Now, I don't think that makes sense. I think they're still basically the same person. You just have more information about them now. But that's the way it's looked at.
This is something that really troubles me. The disappearance of, if you want to call it the old person, the old personality. The way I look at it, there is a great deal of Edward that lives on in Diana. I am the same person I was then, and to know me now, you know me then, whether you know it or not. And what troubles me is how much some people want to discard what they were. People going into, some people go into deep stealth because they have to, because they're going to suffer consequences if they are found out. But then there are the other people who absolutely hate, as they say, the personality they were. I don't understand how I could do that to what I was, because they're the same. But how I don't get it, but it does trouble me. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people, I mean, obviously, what do I know about transition, having never gone through it? I mean, I've only ever spoken to trans people and they've got their own ideas, but I think it's the idea that they don't want to remember their dead name. They don't want to remember who they were. They want to become this character, if you like.
Part of it is that, but part of it is psychologically the way human memory works. I actually had a discussion about this earlier. A lot of trans women I know, when they remember their childhood memories, they know logically that they were assigned male at birth and that they were a boy at that time. but in their memory, they perceive themselves as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
It literally physically changes their memories.
Yep.
I know how that works. Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense. But because everybody saw Bruce, and Bruce is now Caitlin, and Caitlin looks radically different from Bruce. Anything Bruce did,
It
it's
looks
almost
like two different
separate
people.
So, you know,
And
poor
I
lady gets
absolutely
to-
agree, and I hold the same criticism.
I just want to very, very quickly say, because we've gotten to the next hour, Mathbig, are we like, have you transitioned over the sorry, weird. Very weird choice of words. Have we converted over to the next live stream? Sorry.
That's
You're muted,
beautiful.
Mathbig.
You're muted.
That's one for the highlight reel right there.
Robbie, you're muted. You're muted.
Robbie,
I said I have
hear.
got like 5 screens going, 3 keyboards, 2 mouse. This is insane to get this shit to work tonight. This is
If we need to go over to kind of like, you know, like smoothing out
No,
I'm trying to think of another word. I'm not going to say it again.
I need to learn how to figure out fucking virtual audio lines. That's what my problem is, but we'll not even get into that. Right. I will check now. Is Junk Shop live? No, Junk Shop's not live yet. You can still go. I'll shout when he's live.
Junk Shop is waiting for us.
Yes.
So all
he's
we
waiting
need
for us?
is-
Stephen, if you want to keep going,
link,
Stephen,
right?
we can move across. If this conversation wants to continue, you can keep it going. I can swap over, and the main channel will. My channel will still see Junk Shop. So if Junk Shop just wants to go live when he wants, if you want to keep the conversation going and keep it, it's up to you. Or we can, you know, I'm going to stay your audience, and I'm going to tell your audience to go to fucking Junk
100%,
Shop.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Junk Shop,
if you
can
want
you
to
maybe
keep the
chuck
conversation
me
going.
a StreamYard link?
I don't have one for Junk Shops yet. I'm my life is
Yeah, that's
insane.
Junk
right now.
Shop is in live chat. He's just made they've just made a comment, which is why I said Junk Shop for a link.
Just Junk Shop go live when you want. I will sort everything else. Junk Shop just go live when you want. This is insane.
Yeah, this is a little bit. It's one of the more interesting streams I've ever done. I'm not gonna. I'll put it that way.
To keep talking and having the crack with Kendon and Sam and stuff, they can do that. But I'm going to steal the audience and tell the audience to go to Junk Shops. And yeah. So I'm going to leave.
No problem.
So, yeah, when Junk Shop goes live, I'm going to leave. So just Junk Shop, go live whenever. And yeah, you'll know when he goes live because I'll jump out of the hangout.
Cool.
And if we can say, thanks to everybody for supporting Manda and coming by tonight and doing the 24-hour stream. We have an open slot there this morning, and Sam has stepped up and offered to take the slot tomorrow at night. It's going to be such a long night, but yeah, really big thanks to Sam for doing that and everybody that's contributed financially and put in for the content.
I don't actually know what the charity is, if I may be bold.
My girlfriend, if I can be short and blunt, 5 years ago moved from an abusive relationship home to look after her parents. Her mother's very ill and her father's got early onset of dementia. Over the last 5 years, she's financially put everything into the house and them, and they are right-wing conservative Christians, and as of this last 6 or 7 months have become both physically and mentally abusive, to the point where she is afraid to go down the stairs and even eat. So trying to raise a bit of money to get her a month's deposit, security deposit, table and chairs, bit of food. Just get her out of the house and get her safe, you know.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a noble cause. Wonderful.
You actually met Manda Kendon. She was in here earlier. She was here and then she dipped out. She was only here for a couple of minutes.
The lady who came in and
that was Manda.
Yeah, that was Manda.
Oh, okay. Hello. Goodbye, Manda. Oh, this is awkward. Right, okay. I shall drop some coins. Let me see if I can copy and paste a link.
Yeah. So Matt,
Share it in TikTok, man. Share it in TikTok.
I'll say it really, really, really quickly. Mathbig, Kendall would actually be like pretty interesting if you guys wanted to in the background or like through email or something like that set up like an interview.
Fucking emailed me twice. It's just this last 4 months, as everybody is finding out tonight, has been insane.
Yes, I can imagine it would be.
Understandable.
So
you are allowed to focus on more important things, Mathpig. It's
I know you're lovely and all, but yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a Twitter?
Me?
Yes.
No, I can't use Twitter. Twitter burns my soul.
Yeah.
It's the toilet wall of humanity. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'd like to use Twitter. I'd like to be strong enough, but I just don't have the spirit. It's I would wither and warp.
I regularly leave.
Fair. Well, I think we've had an interesting chat. If I'm going to stick my email in the private chat, and if you want to email me at some point, you're welcome to.
Well, yeah, I mean, as I say, Stephen, if you want to stick my email in the description or something, it's kendonfar@yahoo.com. So yeah, just ping me something, and I'll send you an email. And
oh wow. Is Yahoo still a thing?
Yeah, Yahoo is still a thing. I
picked
it at random. I didn't care who provided it as long as I got emails. That's all that mattered.
Okay. My email is in the side chat in case.
I'm sorry, you got on Yahoo. You've got fnordnet.net. I don't even what is that? Oh wow.
Okay.
Okay. I own that domain.
Okay, fair enough.
Have you ever heard of the? Have you ever?
Hi, Mathpig.
Have you ever heard of the Discordians?
Why is that familiar? No, I think
Palearis.
No.
It's a parody religion based on the worship of the goddess of strife, discord, and chaos. And Fnord comes from that.
Okay.
It's a joke about secret messages in between the lines in newspapers.
That is amazingly counterculturally specific, and I admire it. It's great stuff.
I wanted fnord.net, but somebody else already had it. So, what can I tell you? No, I've had that domain for the last 15 years, something like that.
Fair enough. So,
I'm okay to kind of continue this if everybody else is. I don't mind. It's kind of up to.
I don't mind. I'm sort of.
I'll hang out for a short while, then I'm going to hop over to Junk Shop's channel.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah. So, was there any like other kind of like topics that were kind of left unsaid? This was like really, really, really like. I'm not going to say like ultra difficult for me, but like anybody who knows my channel knows that I like rant and rave and I stream for hours. So like rigorously restricting it to just 1 hour was really fucking difficult. So I mean, like, Endon, you and I know, like, sure, like we've streamed for what, like the latest was like 2.5 hours or something like that, just talking back and forth and stuff. So yeah, it was interesting, but yeah. If we wanted to, if anybody else kind of wanted to say anything that was left unsaid or that we had to move on from, go for it.
I don't know, because it was the first topic, wasn't it? The first topic was super straight. I can't remember how that ended because obviously we stopped and moved on to.
I think we basically left it on the something along the lines of there are issues around it that are potentially worth having conversations about, but where we would differ is that I think there's like other stuff that it's worth acknowledging is more important to deal with first.
What's more important to deal with first? Sorry.
Things like the issues with the statistics I mentioned around trans people and the fact that non-binary people still aren't legally recognized at all. Shit like that.
Yeah.
And
the trouble is, though, I think the attitude that I get, because obviously I come to this from the dark side, the opposite end of the pitch, is that there's a sense, right or wrong, it doesn't really matter at this point, that there's no conversation to be had. It's a lecture to be heard. And
Yeah.
I mean,
that really
there
that
is-
really pisses off a lot of people. My minor TikTok channel, right, just got like somehow, as I don't even understand it myself, has got like 607,000 subscribers now, which is mental. I don't know how that's happened. I draw from all over the political spectrum. I've got leftists, liberals, centrists, Tories. And I do try my best to weed them out the garden. I even get a couple of neo-Nazis drop in. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they're dropping into my channel because look at the bloody great big flag behind me. No, that's they do tend to, they drop in, and I just tell them to keep that crap to themselves. I don't block them necessarily. Anyway, the point I'm making is that I'm drawing from such a broad pool. But one of the things that unites the liberals, the centrists, and the normal conservatives who aren't twats is a fear of the trans movement, a fear of the trans ideology, a fear that they aren't allowed to ask questions or to say no to something, that they will just be bullied either into silence or into submission. Now, if that's a false perspective, that's fine, but there's a lot of PR work to be done. There's a lot of PR.
Oh,
work.
absolutely.
There is absolutely.
So the PR is relatively shit. That needs to be got together a bit. But I think the thing is that a lot of the time when people say, "Oh, I just want to ask questions about me being non-binary," what they mean is, "I don't believe you're non-binary," and that's not up for debate. Even if you want to take a trans-medicalist perspective, which is bullshit, but I have physical dysphoria. As much as binary trans people exist, I exist as non-binary.
Okay. Fine.
No.
Yeah, I would just.
I don't understand it, but I'm not going to discount
And
it.
so, I'm happy for there to be discussions around it, and there is potentially even places where it's like, where do we draw certain lines? And there's a discussion to be had there, but the discussion isn't, do I exist?
No, but
I would just kind of say, I mean, sorry, I understand that as much as I understand what it's like to be cisgender trans. Is that the right? You get what I mean though, like binary trans,
the opposite of trans.
Yeah,
cisgender.
Exactly. Okay. No, but I mean, like, I understand that just as much as I understand what it's like to be binary and trans. Like, I understand what it's like to be non-binary just as much. Like, I understand what it's like to be gay just as much as I understand what it's like to be trans. I absolutely don't. But I'm still like, I'm not in like. Well, I mean, technically, I am in a position to, but I'm never going to discredit or to say like, no, you don't get a seat at the table because of who and of who you are. That's just not up to me. The whole thing about like the trans movement and not being allowed to ask questions. The only thing that I would say to that, Kendon, is I don't think that people are not allowed to ask questions, but as soon as you do, and then you continue to push back because of, like, as I've just described, my own ignorance. That is something that I am profoundly ignorant about. I will never understand what it is like to have a sexual attraction towards a guy. I'll never understand what that's like because I am unfortunately cis, white and a man. It's the unholy trinity. But like I will, but to ask the questions and then continue to say, nah, that's not really a thing, or you don't get the same rights as I do. That's where the issues come. The conversation, I don't think that anybody is going to say that that's not, that like you can't ask questions about what is, what like the like trans experience is about, or like what your life experience has been up to this point. Nobody's saying that.
For anyone who thinks they have a question that's probably insensitive, my DMs and my emails and whatever are open. I have thick skin. I'm happy to answer any potentially insensitive questions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because I mean, like if you have an insensitive question, yeah, like it probably is insensitive, but like coming from a point of not knowing like anything about the lived experience of somebody who is trans, like even though it is an insensitive question, like is it necessarily like a bad thing in the same sort of context as it would be to be discrediting towards you simply just because we want to learn is my question.
But see, there's another phrase that I absolutely loathe. The phrase "lived experience" is one that's crept into all the literature now. Lived experience, we used to call that anecdotal evidence, and we used to regard it as not necessarily worthless, but not worth as much as hard facts and data. You say non-binary, but there's a question I would ask: what does that actually mean in context? What if you're not binary, what does that mean?
Okay, so for me, what that means is, to be crass, wants dick, wants tits.
So a sort of a blend of the two, for want of a better phrase.
For me personally, yes. Non-binary is kind of a catch-all for everything that isn't binary, masculine and feminine. And so for me, that happens to be the case. It isn't for everybody.
You also said something. Okay, you also said something about transmedicalism being nonsense, but surely the greatest strength of the trans movement has always been the idea that you're wired differently, that you need to be.
So what transmedicalism is the concept that you have to have physical dysphoria to be trans.
If you don't have physical dysphoria, though, why would you want to be trans? Why would want even be part of it? I mean, I can understand someone's nature demanding certain changes, that makes sense to me. But if you don't have dysphoria, why would you even consider transition on any level?
Several reasons, one of which being gender euphoria. Just to throw out an example.
You're going to have to elaborate on that.
Please.
So, I will get there. So one of my ex-boyfriends, for example, is a trans guy. And he doesn't experience very much dysphoria at all. But when he gets perceived as masculine and when he feels more masculine, he feels positive and as much as there's a sense of discomfort for a lot of trans people around being misgendered, he doesn't get that. But when he's correctly gendered, he has a sense of increased comfort.
Yes, but okay. Which begs a question. Sorry. I see your name as Crazy Cat Lady, but I'll call you Diana. If that's
okay, fine, no problem.
Diana, Crazy Cat Lady. Let me just interject. What causes the gender euphoria, if not something hardwired? Now, there's a reason why. No, there's a reason why I'm asking this question, because this is really important. One of the big pushbacks that I get from people in my comment section, so I'm dragging comments from there, is the idea that they're making it up. That's the biggest, which is obviously
transmedicalism isn't the idea that it's hardwired is the thing. It's the idea that it has to involve dysphoria. The hardwired bit I agree with. The gender euphoria is hardwired in there. The issue is when you say you have to have physical dysphoria to be trans, because some trans people just have social dysphoria, and transmedicalists also disregard them. And transmedicalists typically also disregard all non-binary people, despite the fact some of us do in fact have dysphoria.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I mean when I say transmedicalism is bullshit.
Well,
it blatantly disregards facts.
Well, what I was after here, when you mentioned gender euphoria, that's what I was looking for. Does that open the door to people like Ray Blanchard, who are famous for autogynephilia, for example, that he regards people like me as getting off on perceiving ourselves as women, which is, it's certainly not the case for me, certainly not the case for most people I know.
Because the implication, Diana, would then be that you're doing it because it's a kink. Effectively,
right, yes,
effectively,
which kind of would invalidate any kind of trans claim you made, because if it's just a fetish, you can do it at home, sort of thing. It's not
perfect. You got it. Yes,
it's not. It's not. It doesn't mean you don't need your own bathroom. You don't need this. You don't need this. I don't have to address you with certain pronouns.
It's a way to sweep us under the rug.
Yeah. So the distinction there would be a distinction between feeling comfortable and feeling aroused.
No, but to
respond directly to Diana's question there.
Well, I mean, isn't the thing though that the accusation is what counts here, rather than what we are feeling. Who cares? Nobody cares what we're feeling. Nobody cares what we are feeling.
In order to go through a physical transition, you have to undergo a psychological evaluation.
Oh, tell me about it.
And in that psychological evaluation, one of the things is they check you're not a fetishist. And so that's already built in that even when we're accepting people with gender euphoria, the people who are fetishists are told no.
Okay, but what we're going back to the original point, because about transmedicalism is that, okay, there is such a thing as gender euphoria as well as dysphoria. I can accept that. That's fine. But the transmedicalist argument, the people who reject it, and again, and I'm going by activists on social media, so if they've got it wrong, that's my ignorance showing, is they argue that there doesn't have to be a biological basis for your trans nature.
There doesn't have to be I don't think there necessarily has to be a medical difference, but there does have to be a biological distinction.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to make the distinction. What in context is the difference between biological and medical? Why draw that line?
So the difference is you can undergo social transition without ever doing any medical transition, including hormones. And
right, okay, so you mean medical
and a lot
as in physical changes carried out by doctors? Yeah. Right, okay. Yes. Right, well, okay, but that's not how it's used. Because medical
that is how it's been. That's how it's been thrown at me by transmeds in real life. I've had conversations with.
Basically, if you don't have top and bottom surgery, you're not doing it properly. You're just playing dress up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but that's not the point though that is being discussed here. I mean, and again, that's
the point that has been made to me by every transmedicalist I've come across in the real world.
Okay, fair enough. No, I'll accept that. But what I mean is that the argument that has been made to me is that you don't need a biological, because the thing is that you've separated biological from medical, and I appreciate the distinction because medical you're referring to procedures, biological refers to nature. I get that. The problem is that transmedicalism, the criticism of transmedicalism, to use that rather ugly neologism, is that you don't need, they conflate medical with biological, so you don't need a biological basis to be trans, which I would argue completely undermines the trans movement. If the trans movement has any kind of whatsoever.
Well, as far as I'm concerned,
the people who do say that are wrong, but to say there's them and then there's people who use the label transmedicalist, I feel like that is and now if you want to say transmedicalism literally just means people who believe there's a biological aspect to sex in relation to gender, I would agree with you there, but that is not the argument I have seen put forward by transmedicalists, including transmedicalist activists.
I can imagine.
So that's the reason why I say it's bullshit.
Yeah, if you don't, well, but the other, I can understand, someone saying, if you don't take hormones and don't have surgery, you're not doing it properly. That's unfair, because also there's a financial aspect to it as well. If you can't afford stuff, there's no, I mean, Diana, I'm not going to ask if Diana's broke. That wouldn't be fair. That wouldn't be a fair question. But it's expensive, even in the UK with the NHS. This, it's expensive to transition. Yes. I've actually, believe it or not, I've actually interviewed a trans man, not the one who introduced me to the Tory party, but I've actually interviewed a trans man to find out what is it actually like, because I haven't got a clue. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because I'm personally pre-hormones, because I only worked out I was trans at 16 and I grew up Pentecostal.
Good luck with that.
I know, right? So
it's not as bad as an Irish Catholic life, as Stephen would attest, but no, Pentecostal's pretty good, as I say. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Oh my word! Yeah,
we had like American Pentecostal speakers occasionally come in. That was
good stuff.
My sister was a full-blown Pentecostal.
I have enjoyed this, and I think we had a decent back and forth here, Kendon, and I've enjoyed meeting you. So good to meet you.
See, not all Tories are pricks.
Oh no, not all Tories are pricks by any means. See you guys.
But not everybody. It's gone.
And we're now very zoomed in.
Wow,
we're now very zoomed in. Now we're not anymore.
Oh, bless.
That was. Sorry, Ken, go on.
No. I had nothing constructive to add. I promise.
No, I was just going to say that I really, really, really enjoyed this. I just don't like I would encourage maybe Diana, you'll kind of like you might have like a response to this, maybe won't.
You'll
I
see.
would just encourage people just to kind of like ask questions, because I think that like asking what it's like, as Ken and you had said, you had interviewed somebody who was trans just to find out what it's like. Like I was in my previous college course, there was two trans people who were in that same class as me, and I would ask questions just from time to time. Like it wouldn't be like a sit down, like interview and go through like step by step, but just to kind of find out like what the whole what that's like, coming to terms with your gender identity, and like coming out to like family and friends, and all of that sort of thing, like and just to kind of keep in touch, and to keep up to date, and follow that follow their transition kind of with them, and to not understand it, because obviously, as I had said, I'll never understand it, but just to be supportive of them, yes, but to I'm really struggling with my words here. It's kind of, how do I say it? Just to try and get an understanding of what that's like, so that like general acceptance can be then made, etc. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but this is the big problem, because I think a lot of, and Diana, as she's pointed out earlier, she's older than both of us. She could be our mother or grandmother or something, right? Diana speaks with greater wisdom on this, but this is something that I think you might be able to chip in on. If you don't allow people to talk, if you don't allow people to discuss, if you don't allow people to question, they will become cagey, bitter, resentful, angry, and they will take that anger out on you and people like you. And it doesn't matter what the movement is. So, and let's face it, the trans population of the world is tiny. It's like 0.3%. There are more ginger people than there are trans people on this planet.
Right.
It's an amazing stat, but it's true. And if a lot of these young activists, the ones I was talking about earlier with when Sam Chaos was on, a lot of these young activists, they don't know how bad it can go, and they don't know how bad the culture could shift against them. And I think if they don't wind their necks in and reconsider their battle tactics, it could shift too far to the right. And then you'll get nothing. You'll get absolutely nothing. There'll be no discussion. There'll be no movement. There'll be no kind of revision of the existing laws. And because everybody's pissed off with these activists that make their lives difficult, there won't be any empathy, and there won't be any understanding, and then no attempts will be made. Perhaps I'm being pessimistic and describing this fantasy dystopia in my head, but I mean, that's all.
Well,
what I've got.
You're tending to describe the U.S. Really?
Well, no, but this is one of the things.
Well, certain sectors of it, anyway. Yeah,
I can imagine. But I mean, I'm having this. I mean, you might not know this, Diana, because you're in Pennsylvania, surrounded by American problems. I get that, but we've just had local elections in the UK.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've seen that, mayoral elections and things like that. And you know what? In England, at least, the Conservative Party has mopped up, and it has done remarkably well, and it's broken what we call the red wall. So the Labour Party, which is very much left wing, its colours are red, and there are certain pockets of the country that we describe as the red wall because it's been red for years. That's been breached quite significantly, and the problem is that they've lost a lot of the regular people because of the attitude of a lot of left wingers, particularly on social media, in the press, on television, and things like that. It's not trans necessarily; it's Brexit. It's all sorts of weird, shit ideas that are going on. But it's a lack of communication, it's a lack of understanding, and more importantly, a lack of interest. There's a kind of disconnect now between activists and the greater populace. And with the trans movement, I can see it myself. A lot of the reason why you get a lot of flack from the 99.7% of the species, I think, is because when a lot of these people meet trans activists, they're dicks. which is an ironic word to use actually in this context. But,
Unfortunately, you are basically correct. Yes. I cannot open my mouth without significant opposition, which is why I basically keep my mouth shut. I'd like to be more active than I am, but as soon as I start speaking, I get jumped on. So it's like, okay, look, I haven't got much life left. I'm dying. Literally, I am. So just, let me live whatever's left of my life in peace. Just leave me alone. That's all I want at this point.
But I'm sorry to hear of your diagnosis there. But I was going to say,
my kidney failure.
Oh, well, okay. Well, what have you? Well, I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask too many questions on that one. But
I'm not having dialysis.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I would rather not be chained to a machine such that I cannot get up and take a piss when I need to.
Yeah, I can see the logic.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a certain point where you realize that the cure is worse than the disease.
Yes,
yeah.
And unfortunately, most of the medical community does not get it.
Well. So, I was going to say, when you say you get this resistance, who do you get this resistance from? Is it just from people who don't like trans people? Is it from people inside the community?
It's from inside the community.
Yeah. The gatekeep, the alpha, the rainbow mafia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, no.
If I don't toe the line, then I'm not one of them. And as far as many of them are concerned, I'm not trans.
Really? How do they come to that conclusion?
Because I don't believe exactly what they believe. Some of them believe, this is craziness. This is weird. I use an older form of the adjective. And because I use that older form, transgendered.
Oh, transgendered. So you just put
it's that simple. Yeah.
Oh, you're having a laugh, aren't you? That's ridiculous. That's but don't you think this is, don't you just want to grab them and scream, why are we fighting amongst ourselves? There's only 12 of us. There's only like 12 of us in this state or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't you realize we're outnumbered by millions to one? I don't understand it. But do you know what I think it is? It's because they've been lured into a false sense of security. They actually think that they can fight amongst themselves because the enemy is without. It's always out there. It's the fighting amongst themselves is utterly pointless. I would argue.
We are going to be our own defeat. That's it.
Well, it's the same with the LGB section. If I'm being brutally honest, there's a kind of infighting going on. Like I'm something like technically B, if I were to pick a letter, but okay. I don't fly the rainbow flag anywhere. I've got like the flag of Britain. I've got the American flag actually overlooking here. I've got the Israeli flag. I've got the German one in the corner. I can't fly the rainbow flag, and it's not because although I'm technically part of the community, my politics don't align. I wouldn't be allowed to work for any of the major charities like Stonewall or the Trevor Project or the Terence Higgins Trust because my politics is wrong. None of the literature that's published by Team Rainbow meets my political criteria. It doesn't cover, there are no major gay or bisexual male conservative voices that can publish within the Rainbow Press. They just can't do it. If you read GT or Gay Times or Attitude or Diva for lesbians, for example, there are no conservative commentators within the covers at all. It's all liberal at the best, but mostly leftist. And that, and they're purging the group. And yet every single LGBT person I know, with like one exception, is some kind of Tory or centrist. They're not flag waving loonies, but those are the only ones they want to hear from. It's a very strange phenomenon. I don't quite understand it really, but
one interesting thing here, which is totally out of left field. Your surname is only the second instance of that name I know. The other instance is my co-host.
Okay, fair enough.
Her name is Kate. Her name is Kate Farr.
Okay.
Bionic Dance.
The stars aligned.
And oh my God, I've got a 93-ton crush on her, but she won't have me. Damn it! 19 years and 2,800 miles. No, 19 years and 2,400 miles makes a bit of a difference. She's 44.
Oh, I see.
And living in San Diego.
Okay.
And I'm in Pittsburgh at 64.
Yeah, I've been to Pennsylvania. I've never been to Pittsburgh. I mean, that's George Romero country, so I obviously want to.
Yes,
explore.
it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I really want to explore. But no,
it's unique. It's unique here. Let me tell you. I've lived half my life here, and I never thought it would ever happen.
Okay. No, I shall explore at some point. I know you don't. I know you have dark thoughts about your country, Diana, but I do love it, and I've loved it since I was 15. Despite all its flaws, I mean, I know its flaws.
No, the USA is I really can't see myself living anywhere else. It's that bad. No, if I absolutely had to, I might consider Austria. But other than that, no, the U.S. is my home. I've lived here all my life, and
yeah, no, I get it. You get to a certain point where you just need roots, don't you? You can't wander forever. I lived abroad in my 20s. I've done that quite a few times, and it's you can't. After a while, you realize you're not so much moving on; you're just running away from your actual home, which is your native soil. And so you have to come back.
Oh God, so I did that too much. I ran away from everything. Really, I did, and it took a long time to get out of that situation where I was running away from everything rather than dealing with it. It took me 60 years. Literally, it took me 60 years to start getting out of that running away thing. Oh, what are you going to do? And I'm still not all grown up. I'm never going to be all grown up. I'm going to end up. Okay, well, here's the thing. I'll quit breathing first. I don't want to die before I quit breathing. Do you get that?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it completely. That's why I can't wait for all the travel bans to be lifted, because the first thing I'm going to do is pack a bag and just go somewhere foreign. Might go back to Israel. I might go, just explore Europe. Just do something. Just go out and explore, have an adventure before I drop.
There are some people I want to see again, and as you were waiting for the travel bans to lift, so am I. Because there are things that are not. There's a group that would get together in Kentucky every year that would protest that Ark Encounter thing that I wanted to get to see some people I haven't seen in a long time.
The Ken Ham creation.
You got it. That's the one. That's the one.
Yep.
There are some people I wanted to see there, and I want to see some other people, and I don't know that it's going to happen because I think I'm going to end up dead first.
How long have you been given?
They refuse to give me anything. They refuse to give me a timeline, but the way my symptoms are going, I'm not sure I'm going to last the year.
Wow.
If I do, I'm going to be very surprised. Because the kidney failure symptoms are getting very, very severe. And what are you going to do?
So transplants are out of the question.
That's cost.
It
cost me about $500,000 just for the procedure, not to mention the immunosuppressants and all that other stuff. Oh, and it amazes the shit out of me. About 5 or 6 people have already stepped forward and said, "Look, Clarion, if you need a kidney, take one of mine." But it's the which amazes the hell. Who would think that much of me to offer me a kidney? But it's the whole medical card, because this is the U.S. We don't have NHS.
Not being funny, but I mean, do you? I mean, I'm digging into your personal finances now at this point, which is a bit intrusive. But I mean, wouldn't an insurance policy cover this kind of procedure? If you, assuming that you have any, of course.
Okay, well, the only insurance I have is Medicare, which is the totally, it's the state thing that's totally worthless, because just the deductible for the procedure or the co-payment.
Oh, I see.
If they want,
you can buy it for free, no.
Yeah, if they want $500,000 to stick a kidney into me, I'm responsible for 20% of that. And it's a hell of a lot of money, kids. And if I try to raise that money, then I lose whatever benefits I'm getting from the government because my income is too high.
Okay, so you don't have the money.
Right.
They're not going to pay for the whole procedure. And if you stand on a street corner with a tin cup to raise money, they screw you out of the benefit, defeating the purpose of you standing out there with a tin cup.
Welcome to the US.
Cleveland, American healthcare is fucking broken. That's just...
yeah, I know that.
The thing, do you know the thing that really annoys me? The thing that really annoys me about, sorry, we're drifting now. We've gone away from trans. We're now talking about American. So my good American friend Amy, her father is a doctor and her mother is a nurse. I think they're both retired now, and they're the first people to tell you because they're both, they're successful, they're educated, and they've worked in the medical field for decades, right? But they're the first people to observe that it's not like for example, the NHS is really good at frontline services. We're really good. If you come in with a bone sticking out of your leg, they'll treat you for free really well, and that's all the rest of it. It's only when you get to the more advanced stuff that it's really good, but the trouble is you have to pay for it. The thing about American healthcare, as again it's been described to me, because obviously I don't live in your country, is that it's neither fish nor fowl. It's not a truly competitive private system, but it's also not a socialized government run system. It's like a cartel of like 6 companies who all get together and fix the prices with insurance and driving up cost. So there's no market competition, but there's also no government health assistance either. So unless you're rich, you're screwed, as far as I can figure out. Is that a fair analysis, or is that just
darn good? When I had my biopsy, for example, they took a piece of my kidney and took a look at it and said, "Yeah, you're broken." They bill for the procedure was $13,000. On that invoice was listed a adjustment of $11,000. What this means, the procedure itself cost about $1,200 to perform.
Right.
The price was jacked up a further $11,000 to get to the price that the insurance company would get paid. And if there were no insurance in the mix, I would be responsible for it.
So done. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to translate this into British. So what you mean is that because the current market rate for a procedure, as determined by insurance companies, is X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
If the hospital or the medical team could perform the same procedure for a fraction of that cost, they still have to drive up the cost to match the current market rate.
Yeah.
Diana, how the fuck does that make sense?
It doesn't.
I don't. People in the chat, if there's anybody still watching this, can you just explain it to the English simpleton? Maybe the Irishman gets it. I don't know. But I don't get it. I don't understand where that 11,000 what that goes for. Why? If it costs $12,000, then that's fine. I mean, you could if you broke that down, if you itemize the bill and you were able to prove to me that you needed $12,000 to cover the procedure, I'd be surprised. Then that would make sense. But artificially inflating the price to match an insurance cost that's only fixed because insurance companies could effectively charge whatever they want because it's not a free market. They're killing you.
I can see the smoke coming out of your ears.
I don't. I'm not a Nobel laureate by any sense. I'm certainly not a medical man. And although I work in banking, I don't work in insurance, so I'm not an actuarist. I'm just trying to. How do you actually sit down at a table and make that the law? Because they must be killing you. They must know that they're killing you by doing this.
Oh, they are. And believe you me, I've personally told them, but that's another story entirely. This is a corporatocracy here. We are run You're gonna tell me that I'm sounding like an absolute left winger and everything. Well, I am slightly.
Well,
to
yeah,
the,
I mean, you are going to.
I'm slightly to the left of Bernie Sanders, but that's another story entirely. But it's the corporations and their profits that determine the direction the United States takes, and they want more money for their CEOs. They want more money for their stockholders. That's what they'll have, and there are so many of us, the poor. If they lose one, somebody else will step up to take my place.
But here's my question, Diana. So
yes,
they charged you, what was it, $13,000?
Okay, well that was the invoice. I ended up paying. I ended up paying $300 for a co-payment, but the whole thing was that the insurance company that deals with my Medicare worked out a $13,000 payment.
But it would have so if you didn't have any insurance at all whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah.
Like you're working minimum wage, you're broke, you can't afford health insurance every month. Yeah.
It would have cost you $1,200.
No.
13,000.
It would have cost 13,000. I would have been responsible for all of it.
But okay. But the procedure itself cost $1,200.
Yeah.
But the adjustment was 11,000 or something like that.
Yes.
But if that adjustment is going to the insurance companies, then if you didn't have insurance, why do you still have to pay the adjustment?
Oh no, the adjustment, that's a number that the insurance company itself just throws in there in order to inflate the price that they get.
No, but what Stephen's asking is that if you don't actually have medical insurance,
right?
Why would an insurance company be involved in the medical procedure? Why
because why would you still get the bill or the itemized invoice for 13,000 if there's no insurance at all?
The insurance companies and the hospitals and the providers, they actually work together to set these prices.
So even though you don't have medical insurance,
that price, that 13,000
to medical insurance,
that 13,000 is the price that the hospital charged because they worked it out with the insurance company. Mm-hmm.
That just makes no fucking sense at all.
Welcome to the U.S.
But that literally makes no fucking sense. And then there are still so that is your experience, but there are hundreds of millions of people in the United States who have gotten an itemized bill just like that, where it's been jacked up ridiculously, and there are still so many people in the United States, 30% of the country, who are against universal health care. What the fuck?
I know.
Isn't it amazing?
I'm just curious. Do you know offhand how many bankruptcies there are in the UK because of medical bills?
Probably a tiny number that we don't really notice because that's not a thing here. If you can't pay your private medical bill, it's because you've been silly on the stock market. We don't do private insurance exists here. It does exist. Well, I can't speak for Ireland. That's Stephen's shop, but in England and in Scotland, you do have private medical insurance. So I, for example, have gone to the Bupa. For example, Bupa is a big medical company for us. I've gone to, if I've had vaccinations like jabs to go on holiday, I go privately and I pay like £600 to have a whole £600 is like about $700 to have a whole list of jabs. So if I'm going to the third world where every ditch disease known to man is there, I'll get jabbed for cholera or typhoid or whatever. So you can do it privately, but you don't need private medical insurance. If you are poor, the NHS will take care of you, and the state, the taxpayer, foots the bill. That's the theory anyway. Whether it works practically or not is a different matter. But yeah, medical bankruptcies, none that I know of. I've never met anybody who's bankrupted through medical bills. Yeah. What's the percentage in the state?
Medical bankruptcies, they are not the top reason for bankruptcies. They're one of the top 5, if I remember correctly.
Jeez.
Let me look it up just to make sure.
What I absolutely
Oh.
do know is that even if you do declare bankruptcy because of your medical bills, like it carries forward. So if you declare yourself bankrupt, the the debt from your medical bills, it basically goes, well, that was a nice story, sorry you got bankrupt, but you still have to pay it.
Well,
Here we go.
Nope.
According to this, this is something known as the balance. I don't know how reputable it is. Medical bills are reported to be the number one cause of U.S. bankruptcies. One study has claimed that 62.1% of bankruptcies were caused by medical issues.
Jesus Christ.
I thought it was that high, but I kept my mouth shut until I had a number.
No, well, 62.1. Well, I mean, 0.1% is too high, but 62.1% is embarrassing.
Yeah, it's almost 2/3.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
because
welcome to the USA.
See, now this is why I kind of understand why Bernie Sanders has an audience. Although I think Uncle Bernie is a bit of a loon, a bit of a kook. I understand his heart's in the right place.
Hey,
and now
hey. He's America's dad, okay? He's America's dad.
Yeah, I supported him twice, but yeah, I know where you're coming from. I do.
No, the thing about the only pushback I would give to the idea of universal healthcare in the States is that because American, I mean, you know this, Diana, better than us too, let's be honest. American states vary so much in terms of economic development that you couldn't have a universal system over 50 states. It would be almost impossible to manage. It would be impossible to fund. If you could do it on a state level, it would be great. If Texas had its own socialized healthcare, if Iowa had its own socialized healthcare, that'd be great. But I can't see it working.
Well, the problem with that is just exactly as you're saying. The economies of the various states are so different. There are, I think, 3 or 4 states in the U.S. that are economically supporting all the others.
Yeah, is it like Texas, California, and New York? Isn't it? Those are the 3 states.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, and if you left things like healthcare and everything else to the individual states, 47 of them wouldn't have enough money.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So you'd have to
dive. Everything does cost something.
Yeah,
I'm one of those left-leaning people who does realize that there are costs. Yeah, I grew up in small business. The male slimy bastard was a shopkeeper, so I know where that's coming from. And I never had a father. I think we talked about this, did we? Is that those two were the first people to disown me when I came out.
I don't know. I don't think you mentioned that. No.
Yeah.
At least not with me. No, it's a tough one. I mean, there is a kind of weird thing. I do find it frustrating when I get a lot of American commentators Stephen obviously hangs out in different circles because he's with the socialist clique. But the amount of Americans who say, well, it works in Finland, it works in Norway, why can't it work here? And it's like, well, because those are radically different countries.
Yes, they are.
They're not America. You can't just pluck the Norwegian model, drop it into Pennsylvania, and save Diana. It doesn't work like that. But they don't seem to get it.
There are people who say that the United States should be 6 countries.
I could see the argument, to be honest.
Yeah, because there are that number of different people. Oh God, I hate that word, people groups, because that's a Ken Hamism. But there are those cultures that would be best as a nation of their own.
Well, I can imagine, like, you got the deep South, Pacific Northwest, the East to the Southwest, so the California side of things. New England up here,
exactly.
I can see that probably making more sense, but you'd be splitting the country up. But that's the thing: Britain is one economy, whereas America is 50. I think of America, as I said this to Stephen many moons ago, I think of America as 50 different countries, bolted together in like a loose.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
I don't know. What do I know about America? No, I just can't. Stephen, 13 grand for a biopsy. And it's not even paying for the actual. It's not paying for parts and labor. It's just putting it into an insurer's pocket. That's not robbery. That's rape. That's awful. That's ridiculous. It doesn't make. But why 13? Why not 14? Why not 15? Why not 12? Where's this number come from? That's the other. Did they just sit around?
Smoke-filled back room, basically.
They sat around the dinner table and just agreed what
yeah, there you are.
This is something else I didn't. This is something else I didn't realize, Diana. But you obviously know something about this. Your medical bill, because you talk about hospitals colluding with insurance companies. If you like you fall over in the street and then you wake up in the hospital, depending on who called you, depending on the ambulance, depending on and which turning they take, depends on which hospital you go to, can affect your medical bill. So it's possible for one hospital to charge a different price for the same procedure, and if that price is higher, tough tits. That is
correct. It is as a matter of fact, it is possible that depending upon the left turn or the right turn, whichever hospital you went to, you might get coverage over here and no coverage at all over there because they're not in network, as they call it.
Yeah.
Is that the phrase? Is it in network? Okay.
Yeah, because they have networks of insurers and networks of providers. So I'm limited in the hospitals that I can go to because of who my insurance company will pay. Yeah.
I'm still.
And if I have no say in the matter, this is what's interesting. If I'm unconscious in the street, if I got hit by a bus, and then somebody picks me up and carries me there, it's still my responsibility for what someone else did. Because they took me to that hospital, I am responsible for that hospital's bills.
So even though they're the one that made the decision, you're the one that gets the tab, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have insurance, right?
I will never complain about the NHS again. I will never do it. Never.
If you have insurance, right, that will cover you for hospital A, right? But in that situation where you're not conscious and somebody brings you to hospital B, because your insurance doesn't cover hospital B, let's just kind of keep it at the same amount. If the hospital then tried to give you a bill of $13,000 because it's out of your insurance company's network, do you then get the full bill of $13,000 even though you have insurance?
Yeah, I do.
That's fucking insane, man.
It happened to me for I went for mental health coverage at one point. And it was my understanding that the place I went to was in network. It was not. I was responsible, even though the provider was associated with my medical doctor who was in network. The mental health people were not, and I was responsible for the entire thing. Now, happily, it was only $500. Happily, we were able to work it out, but still, I got nailed for it. Yeah. And that's one of the major problems here, is that you've got so many levels and so many places where you can fall through those cracks and you can end up with a bill that, well, a friend of mine was in hospital and a doctor had told her, okay, we're going to have to do this procedure. And she said, well, I can't afford it. And he said, we're still going to have to do it. And she said, well, I'm going to refuse. And he said, okay, we'll wait until you're unconscious and then we'll do it. And you'll get charged for it and you won't have anything to say about it. That's another.
What? Say that a little.
We don't know we're bored. We don't. We just. This is. It's a racket. That's what it is.
How can they do a procedure if you revoke consent?
Because it's emergency procedure. Because the minute that she would lose, I think it had something to do with cardiology, something about a heart problem. The minute that she would go unconscious, they were now empowered to do whatever they decided they needed to do to keep her breathing. And that's how they could get
it. So it was their medical duty to perform whatever treatments necessary to keep her alive.
Yeah.
So if she refuses the treatment, tough, because they've sworn an oath to save her life.
There you go. And by the way, this is something that worries me very, very much, because when the time comes, I want to be sure that I am dead and nobody can make a decision like that on my behalf.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy. I may have to consider suicide.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not hyperbole. You would actually have to consider.
I would have to consider suicide, because my death is very likely not going to be sudden.
No, it wouldn't be. Not with renal
I mean,
failure.
my sister was the lucky one. She died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Her death was sudden. Mine will not be.
No.
And I'm going to be in all kinds of shit if I am discovered in enough shape to resuscitate me.
Mm-hmm. See, in the UK at least, you have like they can't perform. I mean, Steve, it must be true in Ireland, Stephen, mustn't it? You can refuse, if you're of sound mind, you can refuse all medical treatment. You can not just sign DNRs. I mean, you can actually refuse medical treatment. So if they say, like this happened to my grandmother, because my grandmother died at the age of 91. She was a diabetic, and as you know, diabetes, the veins collapse, and when the veins collapse, they go rotten. They become necrotic, and they have to amputate.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, what killed her in the end was she was 91 anyway. She didn't want to lose a leg because she'd lose her home, because she couldn't live at home. And she decided before they could perform the procedure, they had to get her signature on a bit of paper. So they gave her the form the night before and said, we'll pick that up in the morning. They went to see her in the morning and she hadn't signed it. She didn't say anything. She just didn't sign the paperwork. And that was how we knew she wanted out. That she had made the decision not to go through it, because what would be the bloody point? There's quality of life to consider. But you're saying that in the American system, my grandmother, for example, wouldn't have had that option. She would just have to have the amputation and that's it. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. And as a matter of fact, here in the US, and I know people who have dealt with this, there are, even if you have a DNR or if you have a DNI, there are hospitals that will ignore that because they are religiously affiliated, for example.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So a Catholic hospital will not honor a DNR. So if I get taken to a Catholic hospital, say I'm unconscious, and they will resuscitate, and now my problems are just beginning.
Right.
Because I'm dead, even though I'm still breathing. How
you doing, Leo?
Hello, Leo Phileas. Because you just joined the
Hello. So yeah, it's a lot to think about. And
no, but this is the problem is that it's insane on every level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are details here. I mean, I always knew that the American medical system was whack on several, but this is next level nuts.
Yeah,
it's no. I mean, it's not just broken. It's mad. There's no logic behind any of it, other than the logic of making lots of money. There's no logic behind any of these decisions whatsoever.
Healthcare in the United States is a commodity. That's the main issue.
There you go, and it's religiously influenced, like everything else in the U.S. is.
I mean, I can see there's an argument that healthcare is a commodity because it's a service that someone has to provide. That person has to be trained. There is an argument that there shouldn't be universal healthcare, that everyone should have medical insurance, but it's got to work better than this.
Well, no,
it's got to be more logical than this. There's no reason to jack up a kidney biopsy to $13,000 because an insurance company says you have to. That's
100%.
nonsense.
I agree with that. What I'm saying is that the reason that we see healthcare being operated the way that it does in the United States, which economists from those who are more left-leaning to those who are more right-leaning have said for at least the last 20 or 30 years that healthcare in the United States is what is called a market failure. And part of that has to do with the fact that healthcare is treated significantly more as a commodity within the U.S. healthcare industry or the U.S. healthcare market than it is in other countries, where healthcare is not a service provided to people because it's requisite to, the substantial health of a nation as a whole.
Right.
It's sold and traded for monetary value within a market, and so it's what we consider a commodity, and that contributes to a lot of the problems that we see in the United States compared to other systems where they've at least to some extent decommodified healthcare, and it's more of a public service than a good to be traded on a market.
Well, I've already said this to Diana. I'll never complain about the NHS again. I mean, the NHS is broken profoundly. There are deep problems with it, and it's not just all Conservatives ruining it. The NHS is broken because it's exploited. People abuse it because they're not paying the bill. There's no bill at point of sale. There is an argument that you could run a perfectly successful private healthcare system that everyone could participate in that isn't about price gouging, but that's effectively what this is. It's a gouging. It's not a free market. It's a cartel of like how many was it they call them health maintenance organizations? Is that the phrase? HMOs?
It's one of the phrases, yes.
Yeah. So you've only got how many companies actually do that? Is it like 5 or 6?
Something on that order. It's a handful.
It can vary from in the United States. Healthcare and the particular companies that tend to dominate the market actually varies, and a large part of this is due to the Affordable Care Act. It's more on a state by state basis. There are national conglomerates, but they at least have subsidiaries that differ from state to state. But generally, the companies that operate, they exist more on a state by state basis. But one of the main issues is that the way that the market for healthcare is structured in the United States, it treats healthcare as if it's something like something like a sports car, where it's not something you really need, so we're going to charge you a ridiculous amount of money for it so that we can make a profit on it. Yeah, it's not. And that's so when I say that healthcare is treated more as a commodity, that's what I mean. Is it's sort of a thing that isn't like necessary to survival. It's something that's what you would consider something that you might trade with another person for something else, money, another good, or something like, or a service, perhaps. If you've ever, given a buddy a case of beer to work on something in your house. I think that's the problem with healthcare in the United States, is that it's treated like a commodity when healthcare should not be a commodity.
So Diana doesn't. I mean, I'm using Diana's example because Diana's already made it public. But it's like the idea that Diana is effectively going.
Is this Diana over here?
Yeah,
I am Diana,
crazy cat lady. Yes, but the idea that Diana is going to die because she can't afford the £500,000 to have the kidney transplant and there's no insurance that will cover it. It's obscene. It's obscene. I don't. How can you rationalize that? How can you look someone in the eye?
Are you saying that phrase is ridiculous, or are you saying that it's ridiculous that somebody is put in that situation?
Well, okay. It is. No, but this is it. I mean, but it was the way that Diana mentioned this earlier, Leo Villiers, before you turned up. It was the idea that if Diana were to raise money, like with a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe or something, to cover, what did you call it? A partial payment, was it? Is that the phrase?
Oh, a co-payment.
Yeah, co-pays. Yep, co-pays.
You would invalidate the rest of the payment. Nobody else would pay.
What would happen is I would lose my my disability pension, for example, because I was making more than the ceiling where they would pay me the disability. So now I lose everything for trying to make up the difference on that one little thing.
Because you obviously don't need the money because you have a private source of income, so you don't need any kind of assistance, do you? No.
Oh, right, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I worry enough as it is because I do make a couple dollars a month, literally. I mean, I make about $40 a month on my channel. But if it gets to be a little bit more than that, somebody's going to see it, and I'm going to be in trouble.
Can you just
And
not declare it? I mean, because you have to do your own tax returns in the US, don't you? Can you just pretend that
Right.
money doesn't exist? Is the tax man going to find it? So.
That's
Probably,
what
yeah.
I'm doing so far.
Okay, that's fine.
Because it's that small. But if it if I ever become more popular, then I'm in trouble. Because there's a difference between being popular enough to get thrown off and popular enough to afford to be thrown off. My apartment's rent. I'm paying $235 a month because it's government subsidized. If I lose that government subsidy, it is now $650, and I only get $1,200 a month. Not even.
Fucking Christ.
Jesus.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Welcome to the US.
Yeah. But this is the sort of thing that, I think a lot of, again, I'm now pretending to be a sociologist, but a lot of the problems I think you've got in your country is the fact that it's every man for himself.
Yeah, it is.
That sense that I can't rely on any other bugger to help me because everything's a grift and there's no safety net. I mean, not even a trampoline. There's no trampoline. There's just nothing underneath me. So I've got to do it on my own damn self. And if that means robbing a liquor store or, I don't know, dealing drugs or, I don't know, selling dodgy porn on the internet, whatever it is I have to do, I have to because I've got to pay these bills. And a lot of these problems might not necessarily go away, but certainly wither if there was some kind of greater social consciousness, maybe a sense of social duty.
There are politicians in the United States who are currently opposing COVID relief payments because, in their words, if you pay somebody while they're not working, they're going to be too lazy to go to work, even though there's no place for them to go.
Well, I was going to say, surely the whole point of a COVID relief payment is you only take it while you're on COVID lockdown. You can't have it as a substitute, as a new.
Right. But they're saying that even though these people have no place to go to work, they cannot work because of the lockdown and the restrictions and everything else. Giving them money to live will make them too lazy to work. That's the asshole in Montana who is, I don't know if he's done it or if he's threatening to end the unemployment payments to force people back to work, as he says. It's in the headlines of the newspaper.
I was going to say that you have to be more specific. There might be several assholes in Montana that I'm not aware of.
Oh, there are. But it's in the newspaper headlines that I think it's the governor of Montana is saying this, and it's perfectly acceptable to these people that they would do that. I mean, these are some very horrible times where measures have to be taken to keep us going at whatever level we can manage, and they don't even want that. See, they use the Bible to justify it, by the way. It's another one.
Well, you could use the Bible to justify it. You can justify slavery with the Bible if you try hard enough. I mean, let's be honest.
I don't know. I was just going to say, I was just about to say, Leo, you took the words right out of my mouth. It was just like, you don't have to even try that hard. Just point to a couple of verses and tell somebody to read them. That's it.
The thing is that it must be deep in your country's founding. I respect the profit motive. There's nothing wrong with capitalism as a philosophy. I know we're going to upset I'm going to upset the lefties by saying that, but there's nothing wrong with capitalism.
No, there's not.
But the profit motive is not the only motive. It doesn't have to apply to literally every aspect of your.
There you go. That's it.
The thing. There are some things that are beyond price. There are some things that, frankly, you don't need to consider the fiscal impact. It's good to have these things. It's good to do these things. It serves a greater moral, social purpose, shall we say. And one of them is having at least, not even top drawer, just some kind of a medical safety net. The one thing that we did, the Labour Party did right after the Second World War is give us the NHS in 1948. The National Assistance Act did it, and it needs to be restructured. It's poorly funded, but by God, it's better than what you're dealing with.
Oh yeah, well, shit, anything is really. No, the thought that just came to my mind. I'd probably make a good little conservative. I've had some practice. I used to be a conservative back.
But American conservatism and British conservatism, for example, are two completely
very
different breeds. They're not. I've heard this case that Tories, British Tories, are like Republicans. It's like not really. No, they're all
not
ideological,
especially not now. The Republicans here in the U.S. now are fascists. I do not use that word lightly.
I wouldn't go. I must admit, I wouldn't go that far. Not from the Republicans I've spoken to, anyway. But they are definitely hard right. They're not. There's no tolerance.
At least those who are in power in high places.
Well, I mean, are the Tories really that far off from the Republican Party? I mean, didn't they, as a party, collectively deny aid defeating children this past summer in 2020 or something like that?
Defeating children. I don't remember this. What's the?
I'm gonna get a glass of milk. I can still hear you.
Okay. So what happened in the summer?
I don't know. I read something about that the Tory party rejected some motion or movement to feed children throughout the summer in 2020.
Oh, what was that? The free school lunches because the argument was that they couldn't actually afford to do it, which is true. Yes, that was binned. It was a logistical nightmare during the lockdown because kids were staying at home. They could not they could not supply children with meals every day because there was no way they could get them to the houses. There was no way they could provide enough that food. That is a massive logistical nightmare. Also, someone's got to pay for it, which is the other aspect of it. So yeah, it was shut down. So you have to be pragmatic about these things. You can't because you can't say we can only offer it to certain people because then you have to justify the exclusion of others. So yeah, the party did shut that down, but that's because it was completely unfeasible. It's a nice idea, nobody wants kids to go without an apple or whatever, but it is impossible to manage. It's absolutely impossible, particularly if everyone's on lockdown and everyone's isolating. You can't even deliver stuff, not safely, because you have to spray it all. It's an absolute nightmare. So no, that the idea that the Tories want to let the poor children starve is a misconception. It's the same when some bozo on the interwebs said that the Tory party forced do not resuscitate orders on people with learning difficulties who succumbed to COVID. So if you had severe learning disabilities and you succumbed to COVID, you were not to be resuscitated. What they didn't say in this article is that those with severe learning difficulties who couldn't make an informed decision were to be resuscitated regardless. That was standard. So the way it was framed was Tories want to exterminate the disabled using COVID as an excuse, which is not actually what was happening. So it's I don't know. I'm rambling now. I'm ranting. This is there are massive differences between Tories and Republicans. It was the Tory party that passed gay marriage in the UK, lest we forget. It's a little.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's like saying that the Democratic Party passed here in the United States. The Democratic Party still, however, isn't a party I would particularly look up to.
You don't have a left-wing party in the US.
No, we don't.
Democrats are Tories. Republicans are like super Tories.
Republicans, Crazy Cat Lady was not far off. To me, I think people are too afraid to use the word fascist where it applies. I think that the party of Trump, which is what the Republican Party is, has devolved essentially into at least crypto fascism, where they're fascist without immediately appearing as the fascism that we're used to from the earlier in the 20th century.
Yeah, this Republican Party is not the Republican Party I remember from 50 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
The Republican Party of Barry Goldwater, and I mean, Goldwater was an arse. That's no question about it. But still, he was not Donald Trump, nor were the other
Reagan
the other
wasn't
Republicans
even
at the
Trump.
time.
Nixon wasn't even Trump.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And Nixon was a definite danger to the country.
Yep.
So,
For sure.
Take it from there. And I noticed it's kind of interesting. We've got some people watching us, and so that's how you came in, Leo. Yeah, because on the Cider and Port channel we're on. Hi, kids. How you doing?
No, it's a weird one. The reason I don't like the word fascist, because I think it's one of those words that I think has been redefined in recent years, but no one told us what the new definition was. So when I think of fascism, I think of, well, I was about to say militarism, but then I remember the military-industrial complex in America. No, but it's a sort of like militaristic state worship. So there's this kind of there's a kind of. It's strange because the American Republicans that I've met actually want small government. They're the ones that's the thing they all talk about. They want small government, low taxation. They want to effectively decentralize. Yet, as far as I know, fascism relies on a bloated, centralized state authority. So, American republicanism, at least as it's traditionally been defined, is surely antithetical to fascism. You couldn't. Do you see where I'm coming from?
I hear this a lot that conservatives want small government, but fascism and authoritarianism and totalitarianism relies on the centralized government, and that's true to an extent. But the whole small government thing is exactly what fascists and authoritarians want. And we can see this throughout history. When people like Hitler, when people like Pol Pot, when people like Mao Zedong, when all of these individuals, these authoritarians and these totalitarians throughout history gained power, especially within what were at least previously democratic nations, they started disbanding democratic institutions. They started shrinking the size of the government, thereby centralizing its power into fewer and fewer hands, which is why I get concerned when I hear people preach that smaller government automatically means good and big government automatically means bad. No, that's just not the way it works. It's not that I'm saying anybody in here made that argument, because I don't think anybody did.
Right.
That's what I hear a lot from conservatives. And the thing is, that discussion is significantly more nuanced. And this is what I find on both sides of the aisle, because I'll be honest with everybody here, and Steven knows this, I fight with online leftists about as much as I fight with conservatives
I do
online.
as well, because I think it's fun. But it's like my idea for my version of fox hunting. It's great.
The problem is that there's just, each side has reduced its defense of its position to just talking points and sound bites, and nobody knows what the fuck they're even talking about anymore. And so the people that are, it's sort of like this clowns on the left of me, jokers on the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you, with all the other sane individuals who just want to make some form of progress and just make the world a better place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I as a sort of a tepid Tory, as a moderate conservative, I recognise small and local government, but the thing is, big, in my view, big is bad. But unlike a lot of people, and this is where people get very confused, that also includes big companies. I'm not a big fan of these transnational corporations effectively determining government policy, because they become more powerful than national governments. Well,
which is what you're saying here, by the way.
Yeah. So like small and local. So yeah, exactly. But Leo Filius makes a good point is the fact that so they decentralize it. They make, like small government, they reduce government authority to a handful of people. But it's still, that's because it's centralized. If it's small and local, so it's scattered broadly, if there is no consolidation of power or a minimal sense of that, you could get away with small government. It's when small government is, say, in DC, and that's the only government that you have, that's when it becomes a problem. Because then
and you're making a very important distinction, by the way.
Well, it's like
and that is breadth of government versus the breadth of government versus the centralization of power that it has. So you can have a small government, what's power is still distributed broadly, but you can have a large government that is the same way, and vice versa with both. So there's a distinction there between the breadth of government, or how broad it is, and the centralization of the power that it contains. Is the power distributed as broadly as the government is, or is that still centralized in a small amount of hands? I think that's a very important distinction to make.
Yeah, because you end up with a cabal of like-minded, corrupt, well, a dictator and his henchmen, effectively, which is what. And such a tiny centralized power base cannot possibly run a national economy effectively, because you don't have all the answers. You don't have it, so it's useless. But yeah, I don't necessarily. But Diana's disappeared.
Oh no, I'm still here.
Okay.
I just don't want to upset anybody. I'm resetting my dentures.
Oh, okay.
So,
no, fair enough. But yeah, so this is why, I mean, I do agree. I agree with the basic sentiment that big is bad, but I think big is bad is like a universal truth, because if it gets so big that it becomes unaccountable, or it's so big that it's unaware of its own internal machinations, then it's unsustainable and will collapse. So it's always good to have small is better, but small and local. So yes, you're right. I don't want a tiny cadre of people in DC making decisions for the whole country. I don't want a tiny cabal of people in London deciding what goes out in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. That doesn't make any sense. That's why devolution actually works. This is the thing that, it upsets a lot of Tory friends of mine. Devolution, to a certain degree, actually works in the UK. Scotland should be, in some respects, self-governing. So should Wales. So should Northern Ireland, because it's just it's a pragmatic measure. You can't run everything from Whitehall.
There we go.
You can't. So yeah, I mean, I still resist the use of the word fascist for the same reason I resist the use of the word Nazi, because that gets thrown around on the internet a lot these days, which is really annoying.
They were a certain brand of fascist.
Exactly.
Nazi and fascist are not synonymous. Yeah,
but unfortunately, and as I'm sure you guys, you two recognize this, they are used synonymously, especially by lefties, which means that they sound like fools whenever they make a point, even if the point is basically right. They sound like idiots. I've been called a Nazi while actually decrying Nazi actions and defending, talking about that. It's weird. They use Nazis like a catch-all insult, and you just cheapen the phrase, you just cheapen the word. There's a whole complex ideology behind that term, and if you really want to study it, and I have tried to, it's depressing shit, but you can. There's a complex ideology there that these people know nothing about, and it does wind me up just a little bit. It's like when people call Ben Shapiro a Nazi. I mean, you don't have to like the man, but he is also an Orthodox Jew married to a Moroccan. So when you call him a Nazi, it's wrong. It's just fundamentally wrong for obvious reasons.
I don't think Ben Shapiro is a Nazi. I don't even think that everything that he spouts, he necessarily himself genuinely believes. But I don't think that it's wrong to say that it is a fact that a lot of the talking points he spews are either A, utilized by people who would be like actual Nazis or white nationalists, or form the basis of the worldview that those people use. And see, that's the thing, is that I'm willing, and where I might necessarily disagree in some ways that some of these people are or are not Nazis. I'm willing to concede, at least for the sake of this point, that none of these people are not. And I don't really think many of them are Nazis, but they're not even white nationalists or anything. But the rhetoric that they use definitely is utilized by the same people, or at least it forms the foundation of the broader rhetoric and the broader worldview that people like white nationalists and white supremacists and even Nazis tend to have. And that's the damage that I think that they do, is while they might not necessarily adhere to the ideology themselves, they still tout the same sorts of ideological bases those ideologies are founded upon. And that's the damage that is being done.
Can you give me one example?
The hyper-traditionalism that we see in American conservatism that is often helps characterize things like white nationalism and white supremacism.
But this is where I'm going to disagree with you here, because I don't. Well, first of all, the traditionalism isn't necessarily hyper. That's a perception more than anything else.
That's what I'm saying, is that I'm speaking specifically about the hyper traditionalism, because conservatism in the U.S. has essentially devolved into a hyper traditionalist, crypto fascist, right wing ideology. That might not be what it is around the rest of the world. I don't think that it is, but in the United States, Trumpism is what dominates the right wing now, and that is certainly hyper traditionalist. It's very, very much traditional values and mores, which is why conservatives in the United States are almost you can sort of essentially tie the rejection of LGBTQ plus support and an understanding of what that is by American conservatisms because of the hyper traditionalist values and mores that they live by. But that is also something that is very fundamental to Nazi ideology and white supremacist and white nationalist ideology as well. But and another thing is that Nazism, white supremacism, white nationalism, at least here in the United States, these ideologies are tied nearly exclusively, I would argue exclusively, with right-wing socio-political ideology. And the question I always ask is, why is that? What is it about right-wing ideology that attracts, in my opinion, some of the worst ideologies amongst our society? Anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, xenophobia, ethnostatism and ethno-nationalism and fascism and all these things is right-wing. Why do these people, the worst amongst us, associate with right-wing ideology?
I hate to say this, but would it be fair to say that the tie of the right wing to religion is part of it?
I don't think that. I think that the religion. See, I can't say that that's true, but I can't say that it's not true. I would say that it's almost the wrong question to ask. That religion is tied into that, but the way that to me that goes back to something that a term you guys might be familiar with, intersectionality. And I think that when it comes to when we're examining the powers that be and how they exist, and when you examine certain ideologies and how they fit into that, and what intersects in those ideologies that helps to form them, religion is certainly a very, very elementary aspect of a lot of the extremist right-wing ideology that we see. Though I wouldn't say that it's necessary to it. I would say that it is very, very prominently found amongst that ideology.
Because what makes me think about this is the whole thing that there was that change in late 70s, 80, where Ronald Reagan went to bed with the Christian right. And there was a shift in American politics.
That's sort of where the traditional evangelical right wing, I think, kind of emerged.
Yes.
Sorry, but I'm gonna have to undermine the entire premise, because you maintain that anti-Semitism, xenophobia, racism, ethnostates are right wing ideas.
In a sense,
they're not. No.
Well, the way that I would word it is that right-wing ideology consists in things like xenophobia and bigotry, because I can't say I've ever met a left-winger that would classify as any of those.
Well, no, but this is just it. I mean, one of the great ironies about, for example, the Labour Party scandal in the UK with regards to anti-Semitism is that everyone was trained to see racism on the right. No one could see racism on the left. It is possible to be left-leaning and to be xenophobic. It is possible to be left-leaning and try to create an ethno-state. There's nothing in an economic model that says that you have to like people who look different from you. That there's nothing there.
Well, I don't think leftism is particularly economic. I would argue it's more socioeconomic, and things like xenophobia and bigotry are fundamentally dissimilar to the tenets that are primary to what leftism is. Things like egalitarianism, fairness, equality, humanism are fundamentally opposed, or diametrically opposed to things like racism, bigotry, xenophobia. So if somebody was racist or bigoted or xenophobic or something like that, I just would say that they can't be left-wing.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. Is that's the no true Scotsman fallacy.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
The reason I would say is that if you don't have any or at least not a significant amount of genetic information in your DNA to classify as you being Middle Eastern, then you can call yourself Middle Eastern all you want, but you're not Middle Eastern. That's not a no true Scotsman fallacy. It's that you do not meet the requisite standards for having some what's the word I'm looking for, characteristic, I guess you could say, applied to you. That because you don't meet these characteristics, you don't fall into this category.
Yeah, but what you've done then is you've set up a false dichotomy between, so the only one side of the argument is capable of any kind of not negative, but sort of like negative character traits or pathological imbalances. So in other words, all racism, sexism, homophobia, all of this is right wing. There is no possibility that the left is capable of these biases or prejudices, and that I would argue is a dangerous position to take.
But remember, I didn't say that these things are necessarily exclusive to the right wing, just that right wing ideology consists in these things. You do find xenophobia on the left. I've seen it. We often probably refer to the category TERFs. Trans exclusionary radical feminists are usually on the left to some degree, yet they're xenophobic. They don't like trans people. What I'm saying is that you can find these ideologies on the left, but they don't form what leftism is. Whereas with the right wing, and I'm not talking about like somebody who's like center right here. I'm talking about somebody who is firmly in the right wing, somebody that you would expect to live in, the mountains of Kentucky, if in the United States, the kind of beliefs you would probably expect them to have. That's what I'm talking about here. When we're talking about like right-wing ideology like that, things like bigotry and xenophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, not necessarily all of those, but some of those things in some part make up what that ideology is. You can also find them in other ideologies, but they don't make up what it is. That ideology doesn't consist in, it doesn't have as its essence these particular characteristic traits.
Well, I mean, there's a distinction there, I suppose, but it's still the idea that the even hard right parties are built on xenophobia and racism and things like that. That's not true at all. Having a tighter border control, for example, isn't because you fear foreigners. You don't have to fear foreigners to want tighter borders. You don't have to fear foreigners to reduce immigration. You don't have to fear foreigners to make it harder to emigrate into the country. You don't have to revise. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to have a pathological fear of these groups to tout ideas. You might interpret it as such. You might say that they're what's the phrase? Soft peddling, that they're soft peddling harder ideas under the mask of moderation, but that's not necessarily what's happening. This is something that's happening in the UK, at least in our discussion. I've heard Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, described as a fascist. He really isn't. I've heard Jacob Rees-Mogg described as a fascist. He really isn't. If you think they're fascists, you wait until the real fascists turn up and then you'll shit yourself. Because I've met real fascists. I've met real real neo-Nazis who would not look you, Leo, in the eye because they want to pretend you don't exist. Yep. For obvious reasons. That's what you would be dealing with. That's a proper fascist. And in Southeast England, where I'm actually from, we're tripping over them. There's a good strain of them, but the danger of conflation is real. The danger of conflation is real, and that's why I think I don't know. Do you follow British politics at all? I mean, you've got your own stuff.
Very, very little, but
yeah,
somewhat, but not much.
Well, because the left in the UK has basically lost the working class. It's official now. The left in the UK has lost the working class, and they're voting Conservative in their tens of thousands. And they're
I'm not surprised by that. And I think that what's going to happen if the Biden administration in the United States doesn't really turn up and turn out and do something for people in this country, the left, so to speak, at least the establishment left, is going to lose the working class in the United States as well. And I think the problem is that a lot of, at least maybe not like the average people who are left wing, like in the United States, people like me, or in places in Europe, people like Steven, it might not be our fault, but it will be the fault of the politicians that at least claim to be on the left. They're going to lose the most important base because they're just not. it's come down to this sort of this identity politics that we do things for the aesthetic, but we don't actually want to meaningfully change anything because we're too comfortable in the system that we currently have. And I think that so many people even on the left in the United States and many other countries are actually stuck in that mentality that they advocate for, we want Black Lives Matter and, reform the police and all this other stuff. But when it comes time to actually, roll up your sleeves and put some balls into what you say, they just, no, we gotta, we gotta take this real small steps at a time, because they don't want anything to meaningfully change because they're too comfortable with how the system is because of how it benefits them. But at the same time, they want that aesthetic of appearing as if they're all about progressive change. And I think that's what a lot of people view the left as in many countries, and I think that that's a result of online leftism. I think that when I say online leftism, I feel like I don't know if Steven's listening, but I feel like you two know what I mean.
Oh, I am.
And in contrasting that with actual leftism, just like I would contrast online atheism with actual atheism. And I think that what leftism has become known as just broadly is what online leftism is, rather than what somebody like me or somebody like Vosh or somebody like even maybe Kyle Kalinske, though he's got some splaining to do on some things. The way that we're an actual leftist. And so that's why I think that a lot of people, especially a lot of the working class, are falling closer to the right, is because of the way that the left goes about discourse on the internet, the way that the left is divided amongst themselves, generally between people who are overly pragmatic and people who are overly idealistic. There's the people that want to take things. What's that?
Does this sound familiar, Kendon? Isn't this just what we were talking about with the LGBT community?
So Leo, just to give you context, Diana and I, when Sam Chaos was on as well, we were talking about how basically the trans movement is killing its own support by acting like fools, by hurling abuse, by not talking to people, by not coming to where they are and trying to convince them with their own language, and they're alienating a lot of the support that they will need to gain any kind of ground. And that's not fair on rank and file trans people like, say, Diana, but unfortunately the movement is what you see in the press. The movement is what you get. It's the left in the UK, and I'm guessing in the US, is completely disconnected from the base. It doesn't really know what the base wants. It doesn't really care what the base wants, and it doesn't really want to listen to any criticism from that base. And because of that, the base feel unloved and rejected, and they go and vote for your enemies. This is why the left has collapsed in the UK. The left is always in the working class in Britain has always been small c conservative. But they always voted Labour because Labour was always a patriotic party and had kind of small c values tucked in there. They've abandoned all that now. Now they're talking about transgender pronouns and vegan lasagna or whatever it is they're into. It's all middle class. It's all middle class graduate stuff that the rank and file don't care about, and maybe they should, but they don't. They've got other things to worry about. They've got we've got to pay the rent, and that's the thing that they're going to tap into. And that, I'm afraid, I think that's where you're going to lose a lot of people. People aren't interested in revolution. They just want to be able to put the lights on.
Exactly, and that's the problem. You got all these leftists that are just like, viva la revolution, and it's like, no. But another problem, I think, is that you get people who read like one or two books on Marxist theory and then think that they're, some big shot, awesome leftist socialist, just knows everything. And these are the people that eventually end up devolving into fucking tankies. But
tankies. I didn't discover tankies until I got on the internet and started doing TikTok. They're a very strange breed of lunatic.
Yes, they are very strange indeed. But when these people approach others, it's like, oh, you're a capitalist? Well, this, that, and the other, and then they just start throwing theory into this person's face, and people don't want that. People, they want to have a discussion with you, and that's the problem. Is I think that the left, at least broadly speaking, doesn't really have the capability of just almost like you said, meeting these people in the middle and having a discussion with them about what it is that their movement stands for and how it can help them achieve the best life for them. And
Yeah,
so they're disconnecting themselves from the greatest base of support that they could ever hope to have.
But do you know why that is, though, Leo? Is I don't think they're disconnecting because they were never actually part of the same. But if you go back to, I mean, if you, I can only use the UK as an example because what do I know about American politics? The Labour Party is a glorified trade union. It was founded as the Fabians. It's an offshoot of the Fabian Society.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it was all about pay and conditions. It was we don't want children up the chimney. We want give us a weekend. We want an hourly wage at a healthy rate. This is the stuff. It was all about pay and conditions, but it was born of the working class. It was born of people who got dirt under their fingernails.
Exactly. Well, and just really quickly, that's how it was with the United States, with the Democratic Party, with Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the labor movement, and how he kind of finalized the labor movement, brought it to fruition, and became a Democrat. And that's what really pushed the Dixiecrats out of the Democratic Party into the Republican Party, which prompted their Southern strategy to further appeal to that base, which caused a shift in the ideology that the two political parties represented in the United States. So yeah, that was where the Labor Party originated as something that was supposed to be, that came out of the working class, but is just completely detached from it. The Democratic Party is very much the same way.
Yeah, but the problem is that modern lefties don't come from the working class. They come from university.
Yes.
They come from college. It's like, my name's Paprika. I identify as a lamppost. It's like, we don't care. Shut your face. I'm not interested. This is not real stuff. It is pure theory, but it's seminar discussion. It's purely up here. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with generating ideas and talking in the abstract, but you've got to be able to send it to someone who sweeps the streets for a living, and you can't do that.
Yes,
no,
you need.
No
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, no disrespect to Diana, but Diana's trouble as a trans woman doesn't really affect people who, as I say, don't really understand, probably never met a trans person, but someone who struggles to pay rent. That's your base.
Correct.
Yes, exactly.
That's your base. Anything more than that is nice. It's a bonus, but it's very niche. It's boutique, arguably bourgeois, to use that horrible adjective. I don't like using it. So it's okay for us, sitting here. I mean, I'm sitting here in my gym jams at stupid o'clock in the morning. It's like 2:45 in the morning for me. We're talking over on a live stream, talking about all these big ideas. But there are people who've been starving during lockdown and they don't know where their next, they're suffering. And that is what the Labour Party should have focused on.
Exactly.
It doesn't.
Yeah, you're making a really good point that, we can have all this talk about all pronouns and, veganism can save the world from certain death and all this other weird shit. But, and like you said, there might be some niche place where that discussion is important. There might be a time and a place to have those discussions, but the average person isn't really, they're not concerned about what pronouns you're using. They're concerned about how they're going to pay their bills, how they're going to feed their family. And when parties are too focused on, and this is what goes back to what I said earlier, that identity politics, the left is way too focused on identity politics, and it's pulling them away from focusing on the much more broad policy aspects that need to be talked about. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to feed my family? What kind of future am I going to have for myself and my children, my grandchildren, things like that? Yes. We do need to talk about expanding rights for transgender people. That's definitely a discussion that needs to be had. And I think that there is a time and a place to have that. And I think that time and that place is right now, right here and right now. But I think that what we also need to be focusing on are other things that appeal to what the average person is thinking about. That's not to say that they don't like transgender people. They're all a bunch of idiotic cisgender dumb fuck transphobes. It's just that, trans people, that's great, equality. But how am I going to pay my rent this month? How am I going to get my kid? How am I going to pay for my daycare this month so I can go to work and pay my bills?
This is why, No, sorry, Diana, what were you going to say?
The person who's having trouble paying his rent or her rent is going to be the person who worries more about somebody like me because they're afraid of having what little they have taken from them. Because look at the way rights are viewed here in the United States. The right you gain is something I lose.
Yeah,
that's the way the mindset is here.
Exactly. The phrase that I love is, when you are accustomed to privilege, equality will feel like oppression. And I think that summarizes especially the conservative Christian right wing. And I'm sure even Kendon knows enough to agree with this, is the demographic in the United States, at least it's always been favored over the others. If you were a white Christian male, even a female for that matter, you had privileges in this country, the United States, at least historically, over most other demographics. I mean, and now that other demographics are being put on the same footing, it's not that these people have lost progress, it's that other people have gained it. It's putting them on equal footing, and they see that as their rights shrinking rather than other people's rights being expanded to their level.
Yeah, I mean, I tend not to talk about privilege and things like that. I think the word privilege has now lost a lot of its original meaning.
Yes. I think colloquially, yes, but academically, I think that's the problem. It's an academic term that people don't know what it means, and it got misused to hell, and now it doesn't have any meaning or any context anymore.
The phrase that we're moving slightly away from like trans rights and things like that. The phrase white privilege winds me up. Not because it's not like a narcissistic reflex action, it's because it's the word privilege is abused in that, is misused rather in that phrase.
Right.
If you had said to me white standard and black disadvantage, I'd have been more sympathetic. The problem with the phrase white privilege, at least as far as I'm concerned, is it completely ignores class factors. It assumes that all whites form one class where they're
thank you.
They're
exactly.
Whereas
that depends.
If you
because in an intersectional view, white is technically a class in sociology. In intersectional sociological studies, yes, white is considered a class.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
White poor people are still better off than black poor people.
Yeah, but you see, you can't make that kind of general statement. That's the problem. At least not in the UK.
It's not.
You can't.
It's not a general statement. And see, that's the thing. I have to speak from the United States. White poor people are still better off than black poor people.
Right. Well, if that is true, and I wouldn't know either way, so I'm going to have to take your word on it. The problem is with this, it's presumptuous because this is where a lot of people, certainly in the UK. Everybody in your tax bracket suffers the same deprivation. What's also true in the UK is that the working class becomes more multicultural first. This is something else that people don't really focus on. I had no black friends growing up. It's not because I was avoiding them. It's because I was in a middle class suburb. I didn't know any black people. Black people hadn't been invented yet, right? We didn't have any. So and I'm not saying I would have spat on them if they turned up, but we just didn't have them. They just weren't around. So whereas the working class kids who went to
poor schools.
Not poorer schools, but
I shouldn't use the word. But I was speaking a little bit hyperbolically there. I shouldn't have done that.
You don't know. You wouldn't know what a comprehensive school is. It doesn't matter. The school for working class people, right? They didn't pass the selection test to get in. They had mates of every color. They had friends of every color because everybody was mixed in together, and they got on, and they were dating each other. And I think the stat is 50% of British Caribbean children have a white parent in the UK now. It's like 1 in 2.
I do know that the United Kingdom is a very diverse nation.
Yeah, this is the kind of blend that's happening. So a lot of the stuff that's cooked up in American social laboratories, like things like white privilege, don't really translate to the UK. They just don't. There's some.
I think I would agree with that. I think there might be some stuff. Yeah, I think there might be some stuff that might be symmetric under that transformation, so to speak. But I think in the United States, when we talk about whiteness or white privilege, or even things like intersectionality or critical theory or critical race theory within the context of specifically the United States, I think the picture is a little bit different than it's going to be in most other countries. I think that when you compare or sort of transform from the United States to other countries, some of those things might be symmetric, but I think that there's going to be a vast amount of differences as well. And I also think that's going to depend on which countries you're measuring against the United States.
Yeah, but this is the problem as well, because of course a lot of this stuff is bleeding into like British corporate culture. Like I work for a bank in the UK, and I attended 2 diversity and inclusion webinars which were basically lectures we weren't allowed to consider, and it was all about critical race theory, which I have deep problems with, and I've written essays on it and about just how it doesn't work, or it doesn't work as it's as intended, and all these different bits and pieces, but it's being spoon fed to us. And when I pointed out, like for example, the recommended reading list, because there's always a recommended reading list, I've read most of the books on this list. They're all American, and they're all focusing on the American experience of racism, like Jim Crow and slavery and things like that. Now, there are, of course, British experiences of racism, and I dare say that you probably know some of them. But it doesn't. Why are we using this source material for our history? It doesn't.
Hi, Stephen's
work.
phone.
Hello, Stephen's phone. Yes.
Hello, Leophilius.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It dangerously doesn't work, and it creates more problems than it solves. It creates resentment, divisions where there weren't any. And I'm actually having a meeting with our diversity and inclusion officer soon, just to talk about my reservation.
Who you need to have a conversation with, and Stephen, honestly, I think would probably agree with me. You really need to go on and talk to Vosh. I would pay money to listen to that conversation. Holy shit, I would pay money. That would be. And the thing is, he would enjoy it because you're the kind of person that you're going to be able to provide a fruitful discussion. Because he usually gets just a bunch of fucking idiots, like people that you would look at and be like, oh God, you are like, you might even agree with them on some things, but you would say you are making your point so fucking poorly. It's not even funny.
Well, yeah,
I was just going to say, Ken, like one kind of brilliant thing about you is that you are incredibly well spoken. You know what I mean? Like you will have people who go on to Vosh who kind of, they don't represent themselves very well, shall we say? They make for very interesting conversations. It's funnier when Vosh gives the inevitable smackdown, like that sort of thing. But why
did you stop talking?
Oh, his phone died.
Oh Lord, Lord have mercy.
It goes
Lord
the
have
bull.
mercy. When is this guy gonna get a better laptop? I wish I had the
Did I cut out there?
one.
Yeah,
yes,
you did. You cut out.
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, well, that is very upsetting. Where did you guys lose me?
I don't remember. Actually,
fuck, what were you saying? Oh God damn.
So I said that Kendon was very, very well spoken, and that like it's funny when there's like people who don't represent themselves very well. It's funny when Vosh gives a smackdown, but on pure like intellectual basis or like pure for the good of the conversation, like in that metric, it would be top notch.
Well, I would, but Vosh kind of scared because Vosh doesn't blink. He's got this. If you ever watch, Vosh doesn't really blink when he stares at people. It freaks me out.
He's right though, dude.
He's got the predatory psycho stare. It's like
he's got that streamer stare. That's what happens when you're a fucking streamer.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd go to the opening of an envelope. So I'm nothing. I'm just some guy on TikTok who's got a few 100,000. I haven't even built my channel yet. My YouTube channel. But that's going to be hilarious because I can see that going completely.
I've been told I should get a TikTok because I'd probably blow up on TikTok. It could drive people to my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, Kenton. I mean, you have like 600,000 followers on TikTok, man. Like, I'm pretty sure Vosh is like, he's definitely talked to other TikTokers, but like, pretty sure that like they had like fewer followers than you do. So
he would talk to you, like if he
would 100% talk to you, man.
If he was listening,
if you
to
got
this
like a few
he'd be
people,
like, all right, get this guy. I need to talk to this guy. When can I set this up?
If you got a few people in his live chat, or if you went into his Discord before and basically just got like to spam like just like one of your TikToks or like a couple of them, maybe he'd be like,
dude, he can go into Vosh's Discord during a stream and be like, look, as long as the discussion is generally relevant to something to the stream and not something like completely off topic, and say, hey, and I'd really like to have a conversation with you about this. He'd probably be like, as long as he's not getting ready to, do a segment or something, he'll be like, yeah, bring him in. Let's do it.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
there's a section in Vosh's. So go on.
I was going to say I could be, savaged by a legend of bread tube. That's a
I don't think that's what it would be. I really do think it would be a really fruitful discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so do I.
That's one of the reasons why I want you to talk to him. I want to listen to that discussion because I think it would be a really good discussion to listen to.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got a section on his Discord for people that want to come in to talk to him on a stream. As long as it's not something that's just far, far off topic as to what the general gist of what his stream is supposed to be about, which generally he covers, a few different topics. So it should relate to one of those.
Yeah, if you wanted to kind of go in and kind of talk about the biometric structure of this or that or the other, he's not going to have you on for that because that's not what his channel is about. But
if you
holy
want to talk
shit,
about critical race theory, if you don't like critical race theory, Vosh should definitely hit you up on that one for sure.
So I let my cat out a couple of hours ago, and it is now torrentially raining, and he is soaking fucking wet. He is soaking, he's dripping wet,
Man, I wish.
Sorry, that's just what I'm being. Yeah,
I can't
that's
wait
just what
till I
I'm
get
being
to
fucking
move to
distracted by.
Because I'm moving to Ireland at some point. I just need to become a big shot YouTuber and make a lot of money. Then it can happen.
Wait, really? You actually moving to Ireland at some point?
It's kind of like being hyperbolic, but if it ever did happen that I became a big shot YouTuber, which it's not going to happen, but it's what it is. That's not why I do it. Then I would. I don't want to live in the United States anymore. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm tired of this place.
Shit. Well, all right.
Go back to my homeland.
Honestly, didn't fucking expect that. All right.
Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah.
Well, if you're going to move to another country, Ireland's a beautiful part of the world. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's one of those really, really strange countries in a sense that there is a different accent every 20 minutes of land.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It's just but it's for a country as small as we are, and I'm talking not just about population, but about sheer land mass. It's literally ridiculous how we don't all sound the same. It's really strange to me. But anywho,
guys, lady, I am absolutely exhausted. It is now 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I was just about to say I was really, really, really expecting you, Kenton, to kind of dip out. Honestly, about an hour ago. Not surprised about that at all.
We had a fascinating conversation with Diana about the terrible state of American healthcare. Leo Filius has dropped in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and has pontificated on the state of the nation from a leftist perspective. So it's all.
Our favorite communist is here.
Who's that?
Parker. He's in the private chat. He's in the back room.
He's a communist, is he? Okay.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
I was just about to say, yeah. So, as myself and Kendon, as myself and Kendon are in the same time zone, it is also 3 o'clock in the morning here, and I'm starting to get I'm.
You know what, buddy?
I was starting to kind of zone in and out of that of that last interaction. So,
hey, buddy, you know I love you, buddy. I'm gonna take off. Much love. Be well.
No problem. Yeah. So look at thank you genuinely to everybody who showed up. We passed Manda's goal, and I can't tell you how happy I am for her.
Yay.
And everything else like that. So comment, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that YouTuber bollocks, and we will talk to you in the next one.
Sounds good.